Welcome everybody to the 10th Eden fractal meeting. We're double digits now, and we were just having very interesting conversations about the meaning of respect. And Charles was sharing some good thoughts, as was Chris. And you and I have been talking all about Eden and fractally and stuff for the past, I don't know, half hour with lots of interesting discussions. And people are turning their videos on now, so it's great to see everybody. Thanks everybody for joining us. How's everyone doing?
Great. Good to see you well, Dan. Hope you're enjoying the beach and stuff.
Thanks, Marco. I'm not too close to the beach. I mean, technically speaking, but I'm doing well, and I'm glad to hear from you too. And yeah, thanks for the kind words. And I suppose in a way, like we're always at the beach, like the cosmic shores, if you want to look at it like that. Like I don't know, and so forth. The ocean's all around us in a way, but maybe enough poetry for now.
Yeah, my wardrobe is full of tank tops. And yeah, never had the courage to put one on camera. Very brave of you.
Thanks. Yeah, I was actually wondering that. I put it on last night and then I slept in it. It's a very comfortable shirt, I'll have you know. And previously I was like, well, I had the thought in my mind as I was putting it on. I was like, well, normally I wear something like, I don't know, like a t-shirt and something a bit more, and t-shirts aren't really super formal, but it's still a bit more formal. But I don't know, something I've been thinking about, something we spoke about during the town halls was about doing more fun stuff for the Eden community. And I don't know, it kind of felt like in addition to being comfortable, also it's a way to just kind of be a bit more laid back too, and so forth. And maybe that's kind of fun in a way.
It is.
So I hope that maybe one day, maybe next week, Charles, you'll have the courage to put on that tank top and come to the Eden Fractal meeting, the Genesis Fractal meeting, the EOS Respect meeting, wearing a cool tank top, cool designs maybe.
Definitely will. It's gonna be a tank top Saturday. So
sounds good. Maybe we should do it all wearing tank tops. I don't know if that might be weird, but I like how the Genesis Fractal is doing fun stuff with the video background. So I don't know, maybe we can experiment with some silly stuff like that. Welcome Perry too, by the way. Thanks for joining. Great to see you. And welcome Carlos. Great seeing you. It's great meeting you this weekend. Welcome to Das and Dwayne and Jesse. Thanks everybody for joining.
Morning.
Hi, everyone.
Well, this is a special moment for me getting up this early on a Wednesday, since Taco Tuesday usually happens in my little town. So yeah, it'll be special. Have you guys considered moving it farther in the morning, or this is the one that works for everybody this early?
I don't think we've really considered it much. I mean, we could, as a group, I suppose we could use the governance process to do so, the one we've been talking about. But what's that?
I'm already making people crazy on everything else. I'm not going to change your meeting. I'm just curious.
No, we could. We could, yeah, by using a form of governance that we've been using at Fractally. The first level 6, I get to decide the hour of the next meeting, for example. For me personally, I'm in France. For me, it's 3 p.m. It's quite perfect for me. The Fractally meetings are on Saturday at around 6 p.m. That's more complicated for me to attend. I have more things planned usually at 6 p.m. on a Saturday. But here on a Wednesday, 3 p.m., that's perfect for me, for example. But for other people, that may be hell, I'm sure. So no problem in deciding altogether what fits us best, for sure.
Are there plans for more Fractally meetings, more Eden Fractally meetings, or just one? That's how it's intended to work.
That's how it's intended to work, and it's quite enough. I think one meeting already once a week is quite enough, considering that eventually we'll all have several fractals that we'll be a part of. I have a fractal dedicated to spreading fractal democracy in French culture and French-speaking countries. I'll be a part of that, as well as a part of Eden, as well as a part of the main Fractally. In the end, it might be a lot of meetings in the end. So
Yeah,
I think just one for one single fractal is enough, I think.
I think, yeah, a lot of us are in a lot of meetings. Yeah, I'm listening to a lot, but Dan and Felix, good God, they're in. I don't know how many hours you guys put in. It's got to be close to at least 12 actual live hours a week. Do you think? Is it more than that? 12 hours? More than that. Felix, Dan, are you guys putting in more than that? 12?
Yeah, I'd say anywhere from like, yeah, 15, probably 15 to 20 with everything as far as like editing.
Yeah. Wow.
And meetings.
You have to listen to them again. That's like torture. That's torture. Oh, God.
When it's all good content, though, Perry. Right, Felix? And you love doing it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like that'd be sweet to make it my full-time job, but right now that might have to slow up a little bit because my day job is starting to pick up, and I'm having extra responsibilities there. So,
what do you do, Felix?
I do project controls for oil and gas company. So I'm assigned like various projects over like a portfolio, and I help with the cost tracking and work with project managers on cool. the cost side of things. So.
All right, that's a great job. That's a great job. Wow. Dan, what do you do? You're a musician.
Yep, I'm a musician, although I haven't played very much music lately. I'm very much looking forward to starting to play again, and I'm thinking of doing like some concerts and events and like that stuff for the Eden community, as well as just streaming for everybody in the world and the EOS community. But yeah, lately I've been working full time and well beyond full time in EOS, between working with EOS Nation, and I write an article with EOS Nation, and I host the Hot Sauce, and I also work with Bywire a lot and several other organizations, Eden Fractal and Genesis Fractal. So I've been working a lot on EOS and Fractal stuff.
Wow. And that guitar that you've got on your on one of your pages, is that a Middle Eastern guitar or a regular guitar?
I don't know. I think it's a regular guitar. It's a classical guitar. It's this one. This is like my favorite guitar. It's my dad's guitar.
Yeah, it's got a unique shape.
Yeah, people, when I used to live stream a lot, people always used to call it like a Ute or a Yule or something. But it's really cool. My dad got it in like the 70s, and I found it like just hanging around one day, and so I don't know. It's called a Giannini classical guitar.
Cool. All right, yeah. Bring us into the play a couple of tunes in.
Welcome to Eden Fractal, everybody.
Yeah. Oh God.
So I guess before we kick off into the meeting, because I'm probably I won't be able to stick around as long afterwards, but I will be around. But I want to share the Pomelo grant for the Eden Fractal for those who haven't seen it. So donations, I believe, end next week on I believe the 18th of August. So that's next Thursday. But yeah, today is a pretty busy day for my day job too. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get on the EOS Fireside Chat, but if I have the moment to, I'll be able to. But if anyone else wants to, share this in the EOS Fireside Chat, if that opportunity comes, like I said, I'll be trying to tune in, and if I have a chance to be able to share it, I will. And then I will hopefully next week, the last EOS Fireside Chat, I'll bring it up. And then I'm hoping to be able to make some content this weekend, and hopefully I can throw that in there too. But yeah, that's for the Eden Fractal. So basically all those funds that are raised will go to help our developers like Vlad and anyone else who's wanting to help contribute to build open source tools around this Eden Fractal. That's where those funds will go. So right now we've I know we've had a couple people, yeah, several people within that's already here on this call all donate. So thank you guys very much. Right now we've gotten 940 is the estimated match, and a total of 260 USD that's around that's been raised. So right now we're seeing a little over 1,000, but you know, those individual contributions, those move up, that can change quite quickly. So I mean, if we get, I mean, we'll see what happens. You know, obviously I think the main thing was getting it up, and then we'll keep renewing it. And the more progress we make here, the easier it'll be. It's all about with Pomelos, just, you know, getting your initial grant and then building your reputation. And then I think, you know, you'll have success as seasons move on. So.
That sounds great. Yeah, thanks so much, Felix, for putting it together. And also, yeah, I encourage everybody to donate to help support and also build reputation. And I totally agree that it'll be helpful for both this season and future seasons as Eden Fractal grows. Also, I'll say we're going to break out in the breakout rooms in about 3 minutes. Welcome everybody who just recently joined, Jorge and Vlad and Nicholas and Lenny. Great to see you all, or at least the ones that have their camera on, and great to be here with you all, Vlad and Jorge. Looking forward to seeing you. And then one other thing I'll mention too, I think that everybody here has been here and is familiar with the process, but the only person who's here for the first time, I believe, is Carlos. So welcome once again, Carlos, and thanks so much for joining us. We have a presentation that we sometimes shared, like, to go over the process, but I'll just break it down really quick for you, just break down like the itinerary. Basically, we do the same process as we do at the Genesis Fractal. Our breakout room will be 40 minutes as opposed to 45 minutes. So we'll break out in 2 minutes, and then at 13:55 UTC in 42 minutes, then we'll come back to this main community room, and then we'll usually have discussions for over an hour that are kind of more open discussions after that. And we have a web interface that Vlad has built, and also James Mart has contributed a lot of code for, to make it so that we can submit our votes directly onto the EOS blockchain. That make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. You're welcome. And yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask. I just posted a link to the app that Vlad built, and yeah, I encourage everybody to use that for consensus results, because it just makes everything simpler. And the window to do the consensus results is before 15 UTC. So within an hour and 45 minutes to submit the consensus results. And it also works in the same way as Fractally, where your team has to, or your group has to reach consensus with 66% of people in order for everybody to be able to receive the EOS and Eden respect.
What was the consensus number?
66%. So if you're in a room of 6, you have to get 4 to 6 people to agree, and so forth. Same as the Fractally white paper says, but you just got to make sure you reach consensus with your group.
Is it also planned to add the second round as we have in the Fractally? Do you consider that?
Yep. That's something that I think we should consider, and probably a good topic for after the breakout rooms. James Mart reached out to me recently, and he said that's probably a good idea, and I think it probably is too. But maybe wait a few weeks to see how it's going in Genesis Fractal. But
yeah,
let's discuss it afterwards if that's good with you.
Sure.
Okay, I just am opening the breakout rooms now. I hope everybody has a great time.
Remember to check your room. That's the group number for the app.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you all doing?
Stressed, but otherwise okay.
Okay. Well, I hope it's you stress, the positive kind of stress that's helpful. And if not, then I hope that you're feeling better soon. We're doing better soon.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm good. It's just too many hands in too many different places.
Yeah, same. I feel quite frequently overwhelmed with just all the different things to do, but it's fun though. Chris, I forgot to mention, I hope that the job interview went well last week.
Well, I went back the following day, I guess, because they liked me. But I haven't heard back. It's starting to piss me off because I really need a job. Well, I need money, and one way to get that is with a job. Hopefully, I'll wait till Friday, and if not, maybe I'll try to find something else.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, best of luck. I hope it works out well for you. I suppose that we should get into sharing contributions. Would anybody like to share contributions first?
Maybe I'll start. I don't have much to share anyway. So the last week I haven't done much. I know, just I think participated in the town hall and then in help in the Telegram group here in some projects, and that's it. And now this meeting for me, that's it. And I am reading the white paper, so getting to know more about practically, been watching some videos and stuff. Yeah, that's it for me today.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Ron. I also appreciate your continued work with helping with CTF as well. But yeah, cool. Would you like to nominate somebody to go next?
Chris.
Hello. Well, last week I had mentioned that I wanted an opportunity to work on the ƒractal website. I've been working on that a little bit every day. I mean, I got like the HTML done. I just got to work on the styling and stuff. So, I mean, it's not much to showcase right now, but I was going to reach out to Dan and see, maybe get some ideas of what he's looking for. Maybe I'll do that afterwards, but other than that, just not really much else. I mean, just participating in the community events like the fireside chat and stuff like that. But and then stuff going on in my personal life takes priority, obviously. But I'm going to try to start getting more involved and working on stuff. And I tried to vote when I got back last week, but it said it was closed, so I wasn't able to submit it. And if you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Sounds good. I'll just say quickly, yeah, but the voting, there's only a 2-hour limit during which the votes can be submitted. And then, yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking with you and working with you on the website, and looking forward to seeing what you've done there. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I kind of like yours, kind of the current website. That's why I'm not trying to, I mean, I'm no like professional, but I just want to showcase what my potential might be, with design and stuff. But I don't know. I just want to do something creative for the community instead of just showing up to meetings and doing nothing.
Yeah, me too, man.
Sounds good. It's very much appreciated, and I'm looking forward to seeing the creative stuff that you guys will do. Very much. Chris, would you like to nominate somebody else to go next?
Dan Singjoy.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. I've done quite a lot this week, so I'll try to be brief in my presentation. Also set a timer so I don't go over like 4 minutes or so. Feel free to ask any questions, of course, too. I've been like working constantly on these websites and then a bunch of different blog posts. So the website we were just talking about, I did some updates last week, which I showed. It's still super basic, but has some nicer designs with a cardioid shape that was inspired by James Mart being like the heart of fractal EOS and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And then this week I also did some slight updates to the Eden Creators website, or just like the homepage. I added a Genesis Fractal because I think it's really helpful that the Eden Fractal community and Eden community helps support the Genesis Fractal and helps promote it. But most of those updates were last week. Aside from that, I updated a lot with the garden page, which has, I'm going to clean it up more with all that text, but it has a bunch of links to different kind of articles and posts. A lot of them are in draft stages for Eden and EOS and fractal related things. So I'll show you briefly many of these links, but it's a lot more kind of usable and interesting than it was previously. And there's just a lot of stuff here where we can keep scrolling down that I'll show you another time. I also co-hosted the Eden Town Hall this week, and I put out a tweet for it to help promote it. And then Felix posted the video here, so you can watch and listen to that. We had a really interesting conversation, and it was great speaking with Chris and Jordan and many other community members there. I also hosted the Hot Sauce, as I do every week, and covered the new CMO for the ENF, as well as a bunch of other cool stories that are going on. And then I also pitched the Hot Sauce during the pitch session. I gave like a 10-minute explanation of how we're creating value for the EOS community with the Hot Sauce during the Pomelo pitch season. I spent quite a lot of time yesterday or 2 days ago just signing transactions, and just, well, the time that took was just figuring out if I should sign the transactions for chief delegate to ratify, or we ratified and increased the distribution. So not much to show, but that was a lot of effort put into just helping the Eden community. And then I put a lot of work into making a Pomelo pitch for Eden creators. It's still action required, but I organized kind of the public goods we're doing is hosting fun events like the Eden Ƒractal, and I wrote some stuff about Eden Ƒractal, and then Eden Town Hall, and then a bunch of other events that I feature on the website related to this, and then also creating helpful content, a bunch of playlists that I've been curating on the Eden Creators YouTube channel, and growing communities, a bunch of communities that I kind of showed in the garden there. And so there's a lot there. I encourage everybody to read it. Unfortunately, it's not currently approved. I'm trying to get it approved. I put together a page on EdenCreators.com to explain the Eden Ƒractal a bit, provide an introduction for it. And I put several pages here that I'll show you briefly as well. And then kind of curated some other links here. I'll be adding this to this much more in the future. And I put together a blog post, which I don't know why this one's not showing. Maybe I'll show you in a bit, but I put together kind of a blog post to feature the Eden Ƒractal tooling and provide links to the GitHub and explain the functionality and so forth, and wrote a little post about it, in addition to some kind of cool art that I had recently to help advocate for funding for Eden Ƒractal developers. I started putting together a proposal for Eden Ƒractal interim consensus process, modeled off of the Genesis Fractal one. All of these will be like published. They're kind of like in draft states right now. I started to collect like contributors to, or not collect, but just like showcase contributors to Eden Ƒractal. You can see some people's here. I only got the chance to do 15 or so far, but you can see like Das and Jorge and stuff, and linking to your guys' blogs and stuff to help promote the work of Eden Ƒractal. And you guys can let me know if you have any guidance on the best way to do that. I just thought it might be helpful to do something like that. I put together a document showing how Eden creators are helping Eden Ƒractal with a bunch of different things that we're doing here, with kind of summing up all the things we've done over the past couple months for Eden Ƒractal. I put together a page for Genesis Fractal. Sorry, I'm at 4 minutes, so I'll try to wrap it up in the next minute. Sorry for the length, but yeah, I put together a page for Genesis Fractal to help promote it as well, and then like help curate lists for people to learn. I put together a page for CTF, which is an application on EOS, building ETF functionality, and Fractal Forums, which is another page that I'm working on for kind of a Fractal using consortium app. And EOS Sage is another community that I'm aiming to form, and I shared like some songs and notes about that. Another community that I'm aiming to form and consortium, which is an app on EOS. I was kind of working like constantly this week, Alien Worlds Fractal, kind of doing that. And there's still so much more here. DAP Heroes page for Liquid Apps, which is an app on EOS. And then I put together a big page about how Eden Ƒractal uses the Fractal process to create public goods for EOS, and curated a bunch of pages, which all have like sub pages. I'm realizing how much stuff this is now, but there's a page about videos here, and a page about fun events and networking with a bunch of writing about how Eden Ƒractal creates value by doing that, and also inspiring communities like the Zeos Fractal and Alien Worlds Fractal and so forth. And then I'll just wrap it up because I've been going for too long. Sorry about that. But there's also some introductions to Pomelo and other pages, and descriptions about Eden and so forth. And then just some tweets and stuff I've been helping with the Zeos Fractal as well. But that's that. Thank you for listening, and once again, sorry for going so long. Hope you enjoyed it.
So do you have that those contributions listed in a single place where we can look at them, or are they distributed in several places?
It's pretty much on edencreators.com, and it's all accessible. If you go to edencreators.com/garden, then you can see pretty much all the contributions. It takes a bit of navigation. And then also, if you click on Eden Fractal at the top, then you'll see several other pages that are linked within that.
So if I go to edencreators.com, I'll pretty much see what you just show us, right?
Yep. Yeah. If you have any difficulty navigating, you can let me know, because I'm still working on making it easier to navigate, but it's all there on the edencreators.com/garden, and then specifically like edencreators/garden/Eden Fractal has a bunch more that are linked within that.
Great.
Jordan, I see you have your hands up.
Yeah, I visited the Eden Creators website, and something I noticed is the images. For me, it's a little too big. Maybe scale it down a little. It's sometimes I'm scrolling down and it's all images. So I'm scrolling, and then it's a very large image, and then there's some text, and then there's a very big image. So something, a suggestion, just that.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. It still is in relatively early stages of development, and I am somewhat limited in my development website skills. But yeah, I've also been trying to figure out how to improve that and optimize it for all screen sizes. But I'll work on that. And thank you very much for the feedback. Chris, I saw that you had your hands up briefly. Would you like to say something, or did you change your mind?
No, it was along the same lines of your website. I guess that you're trying to work on like a mobile first design, but because I don't know, I that's one thing I got to say, the images, just all over the place. But I think that's kind of cool. I mean, maybe when we talk later about, me, trying to contribute something, maybe we could talk about your process and that sort of stuff. All right, I'll stop.
Sounds great. Now. Yeah, I thank you very much, and I would enjoy that. So I hope we can talk about that. And I agree with the feedback. I suppose maybe if Jorge or Lenny or Tadas would like to go next, feel free to nominate yourself. If not, then I'll nominate Lenny to go next.
Smart boy, and compensate my shortness with you a little bit going over, maybe. Anyway. I have pretty much the standard version of what have I done similarly. And most of you, I believe all of us have been together a few times here, so there's nothing exciting new. And let's see. What I do, I merged, I do the recaps, as you know, and that takes a heck of a lot of time now when I'm trying to improve it and change it. I put all 4 recaps here because also the EOS one now is merged with Eden on EOS, because it's a bit of a cross promotion over to EOS that way and similar. So I'm trying to, I'm playing around with it and see how to get the better audience and comments and stuff. But that's my main effort anyway. And then no invites again. I'm kind of waiting to see how it develops, how it goes, get better structure before I have the right kind of people. I have a group of people I would like to invite, but I'm waiting for the right timing, where different Fractally here and Eden Fractally, I'm waiting for the whole concepts to come together a little bit better before I start pushing them in one or other direction. And last Fractal meeting, Eden Fractal, last week, I was there after a long time away, and it was level 3 I ended up on as far as I can see. So in total, handful hours or more or something, maybe a day's full worth if you synthesize it. Besides that, of course, you sit with the hi-fi discussions, Eden ahead with hi-fi for an hour. You did the fractal fiction, you do the social media shares and comments and similarly, but that's kind of something you might do anyway. So I don't, so to say, regard it as an effort, strictly Eden Fractal. That's pretty much it for me. Oh yeah, and then someone else to go after me. Let's put your I need to practice your name. Jorge. Can you repeat it again? I can't get it right.
Do you know Santa Claus? Yeah.
Yes.
Which comes laughing. Ho ho ho.
Yeah. All right.
Hey hey hey. You just put those together. Jorge.
Jorge. Okay. All right. That's a good one. That's a good trick. You've done it before.
Yeah.
Okay, your turn.
Okay. This week give me a second. Is there a way I can share my screen here?
Yeah, I'll give you permission to do that.
Okay, I'll put a timer.
You should have permission now. And did you want to do timer, or you want somebody else to do timer?
I already put the timer. So you guys are seeing this post from Matt Langston. Okay, this guy made this statistical analysis several weeks ago on the ƒractal group, and I haven't read it. I read it this week, and what I wanted you guys to pay attention are to the graphics. One of them, maybe the main one and most surprising to me, was this one, the graphic number 8. In this graphic, the vertical axis represents noise. He calls it precision, but it's basically noise. It's a measure of the variability of the ranking each individual is given to his teammates. And the horizontal axis represents the number of meetings that individuals has attended. So what we can see in this graphic is the more meetings people attend, the less noise his judgment has. So the most trustworthy his judgment is. And this has strong implications because, for example, in the ƒractal meetings on Saturdays, whenever a big decision is to be taken, the ones who rank the highest are the ones who do that decision. But we can have people that bring a very high, a very good contribution and has come very few times. So he's not really familiar with the whole contributions of the rest of the people, or the whole impact any decision can have on the rest of the people. So this graph, which is based on data from the actual meetings, tells us that maybe that's not the right approach. Instead of taking the highest contributors to make the decisions, you have to take the people who has attended the most, even if their contributions haven't been as big. And this graph is also important because it tells us another story, which is several weeks ago in these chats, in these meetings, this guy James Smart, well, we were discussing about possible attack vectors on the system. And one of those that I mentioned and that James Smart corroborated was, for example, if tomorrow Mr. Bean said, hey, let's go to Eden ƒractal meetings and we have 1 million new people here, the whole thing will become a mess because we will have a lot of people, new people, that don't have any idea about our values or principles or whatever we are doing, trying to get valued here. So that puts a restriction on who we invite and at what rate until we see this graph. Because if we already know, as this graph is telling us, that the most trustworthy contributions are from those who have attended the most, then we could add a weight to level attendance so that voting power and voting power and maybe ranking power is proportional to how many how many meetings, the voter has attended. And that will allow us, for example, to onboard 100,000 people tomorrow, which at the very first meeting will have no voting power. Even if they receive the respect, they will have no voting power. So they wouldn't affect the whole community, but still will be onboarded. So we will get the most of it without the negative effects. And that's one thing. The other contribution, so this analysis was posted on the Eden ƒractal team. And the other contribution we did from the simulation team was to notice that there is a double dipping effect from the way teams are being organized on the Fractally ecosystem. And the reason is that if I come here saying that I'm representing a team, you guys are going to rank me not based on my personal individual contributions, but on my team's contributions. So you will be ranking, for example, if my team has 5 members, all of those members will be ranked by you. But if another of those members is in another room, then that room is going to rank also all of the 6 members. So all of the 6 members, if they are in different meetings, they will be ranked 6 times. And if the team is composed of 12 members, all 12 members will be ranked 12 times, and they will get 12 times as much respect. So there is an unfairness there. There is a double dipping effect that Jordan Ackerman identified and that I've posted on the Eden ƒractal channel. So I'll wrap up by that. Thank you guys for listening. How do I stop sharing? Yeah.
That's a lot of tabs, man.
Thank you. So I'll give the next turn to Teras, I think is here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think, Jorge, that you touched on something important here. I on both of these ideas, I think I had some doubts about how teams are evaluated in Fractally, and I also had some concerns about a lot of people crashing and changing the value of evaluation of a Fractal meeting. Yeah. Anyway, so regarding my contributions, so last week by talking with different people regarding my albedo idea, which I published a white paper a few weeks ago, I realized that maybe it could use some posts which would simplify which would summarize the idea in a bit simpler terms. And so
You're muted, Teras, and then also you're muted, Lenny, as you're trying to tell him that, I think.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I will start again. Okay.
Just by the way, Teras, we were able to hear most of what you're saying up until like the last sentence. You ain't gone for very long muted.
Oh, weird. I don't know how I got muted. Yeah, so you heard about the post where I tried to summarize the albedo idea. Yeah, so this week I published it. This also looks at this idea from a slightly different perspective. Specifically, it looks at vote buying, which in blockchain governance process is usually considered bad. But I realized that what I'm proposing involves vote buying. The critical difference is that the vote buyer, the briber, is actually a democratic governance process, a democratic, decentralized, and transparent governance process. Yeah. So the way it works is that token holders have opportunity to be rewarded for voting the way Fractal contributors do, and in that sense, they are getting token rewards for voting a certain way. So that's almost like vote buying. And yeah, so I think that's might be a useful way of looking at this. And also for the rest of the week, I worked a bit on researching other projects which use similar architecture that I proposed using in my white paper, because this space is moving very fast, and there are some new projects which do something similar. Namely, they try to create blockchain applications in a modular way. So I'm reviewing these projects again and looking at what I can learn from them, and included my updated specification for the more detailed version of this protocol, basically. Yeah, so that's all from me this week.
Cool. Thank you very much to Das, and also Lenny and Jorge for the excellent contributions. Really excited to see all this cool stuff that everybody's doing. Does anybody have any questions or comments for anybody before we do consensus? Juan?
Yeah, it's to your, Jorge, I got that name. Jorge? Yeah, am I right?
Okay. Remember, smiling. Ho, ho, ho.
Okay. About your contribution, I didn't, I understand that fully. You said someone, I saw that post. You shared that in ƒractal, I think, and I read that, but didn't understand most of it. But now you said it is, you described that it was written by somebody, and you explained that, but I didn't get, what your contribution was. Maybe I didn't hear it, and internet was disconnected for some things. I didn't properly hear it. Sorry.
Well, thank you for the question. Well, the contribution was discovering what the graph was telling. Matt Lansdowne created the graph, plotted, but nobody interpreted it. Nobody noticed that the graph was giving us a feedback that we could weight the vote of members by number of meetings attended, and that will help us to be protected from civil attacks as a community, from getting 100,000 new people and being affected by them. And that's one of the aspects. And the other, well, pretty much everything that I said was the information that I got from the graph, which nobody had done. And I also wanted to add that I am working with Carlos Rizos. He's gonna go. He has been going to the ƒractal events, and he's probably going to come to these Eden ƒractal meetings too. We will be working on the Spanish ƒractal community very soon.
What was the name of that person that you're working with, Jorge? On that?
Carlos Rizos. I just posted it on the chat.
Cool. Yeah. He actually just joined today. He's in another room right now.
Okay. So shall we proceed?
Cool. I think so. We have about 10, 11 minutes left until consensus ends and the room ends. So if everybody's cool with it, then we'll do the process of voting in the Zoom chat, and we can go starting with rank 6 or level 6 rather.
So guys, I've always have advocated that we do not rank ourselves in order to extract the most value of this meeting. If you agree, I'll be the most happy man.
Yeah, actually about that, I was watching some videos about the cognitive biases. So there's actually a bias, something called the anger bias or something like that. I don't remember it quite right, but there is something. There are some things that affects our decision. So I am aware of some, so I'm trying to not fall into that. So yeah, I don't know about the voting for some, oneself, because if I think I am eligible to be on the top position and then I vote for someone else, you can say, you don't believe in you, so why do we believe in you? There's something like that, or maybe I don't vote for anyone and I remain silent. I don't know.
I'll say that I vote that we can vote for ourselves. I'm happy to do it either way. I think that James Mart and Dan Larimer have made compelling cases that voting for yourself is in the best interest of the community, or the ability to vote for yourself is in the best interest of your community. But I'm happy to do either way. Jorge, sorry, I kind of reacted a bit too much, I think, last week about this. My main issue with it is just that I think it just distracts us from reaching consensus. Every minute that we talk about self-ranking is a minute that we're not being able to reach consensus. So I'll just be brief and say I vote to enable people to vote for themselves, but I'm happy to do either way.
Well, I wanted you guys to know that if any of you guys vote for yourself, I vote for myself too on the first place. And if that happens, other people is going to have the incentive to vote for themselves too. And if that happens, the measurement quality of this team will be reduced. So whatever team chooses is right. But if we don't focus on valuing other people's and doing the measurement, but instead putting ourselves the top spot, then the incentives for all of us is to do that exact same thing.
But then if I want myself to be on the top and I don't vote, and then everyone wants the same thing and no one votes, it's either no one votes for anyone or everyone votes for the. It's like that.
No, the thing is that.
How about nobody votes?
Well, that's guy. So I guess Lenny and Taras and Chris will have to take that position. Dan is for self-ranking. I'm against it. Gideon doesn't have a clear position.
Okay, I'll give, I've been pondering back and forth, trying to see the negatives and positives. And I tend to agree that the better position, disregarding what Dan have done, I see some other areas that I might highlight at another time. But I'm of the opinion that, yes, we should not vote on ourselves. I think that gets a cleaner result if everybody, all groups, do in the same manner and similar. So but my opinion there is that we should not vote for ourselves.
And I think it's better if we don't vote for ourselves, but then I'm just saying there's also this possibility. You say everyone will vote for themselves, then there's also, if everyone wants to be on the top, then no one will vote for anyone also, because
exactly
they want to be on the top. So
okay,
that's what I'm saying. Because I kind of think if they should vote for themselves, but then there's also we have to make that known, because I don't know.
Okay, Tada's turn.
Okay,
so you get to Das and Chris briefly share their opinion, and then we only have 7 minutes left, so we should really move on. And do quickly.
Yes,
I don't support self-voting.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, today I won't vote for myself. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. So we'll do it where you can't vote for yourself, and we have about 6 minutes left.
You can't vote for yourself. We got 4 people against 2 for voting for himself.
Yeah, as I said, sorry if I mispronounced it. I said we'll do it where we can't vote for ourselves. Cannot.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, let's proceed.
Okay.
Level 6.
Okay, sounds good. Is everybody ready?
Rapid fire.
Okay,
raise your hands when you're ready.
Ready, yeah.
Everybody's ready. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, we got consensus.
Dan already have a majority.
Okay, yeah, looks like I have 4 of 6 here. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Level 5.
Hang on.
Level 5. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
You. Between Jorge and Taras.
I actually did mean to vote for Lenny, but I kind of forgot. I got confused. But if voting for Tadas will help to reach consensus, then I'm happy to vote for either Tadas or Lenny.
You voted for Tadas already, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an accident. So, I mean, I think that the reason why I voted for Lenny was because I think that Lenny's doing like great work with the recaps, and also he's doing a really uniquely helpful work in that he's sharing all these in different channels, and people aren't seeing like the Ƒractal stuff. So I'd advocate for Lenny, but I think Lenny has 2 votes now, and Tadas currently has 3 votes or 2 votes. So actually, either way, it's the same. So yeah,
Tadas has 3 votes.
Tadas had 3 votes because I voted for Tadas. So I'll change my vote to Lenny.
But then we don't have consensus. Tadas has 2, Lenny has 2, and Jorge has 2.
Okay, I'll change my vote to Tadas. Sorry.
Now Tadas has 3.
I also really appreciate what
Jorge
Tadas is doing too. Right.
Yeah, me too. I am, reading the recaps, and I think it is, it deserves more. But then, have we reached consensus, or someone has to change?
No, we haven't.
No. At this point, Tadas has 3 votes. So I've changed my vote to Tadas. If one more person is willing to vote for Tadas, then Tadas will win, or else Jorge or Lenny, if people want to advocate, then they have some support as well.
I appreciate the word of Dan, and I agree, but I feel that both Tadas and Jorge have more impact in the progress of our reading community and similar in general. So therefore, I would say don't vote for me in this position.
Then
okay.
I'll change. But I really do like the recaps and stuff, and I have some little suggestions also.
Okay, guys, I voted for Tadas, and I think the bottleneck in these processes is in developing. So let's vote for Tadas, if you guys agree.
Yeah, I changed that, so I think we reached consensus.
Okay, cool. We reached consensus with Tadas at number 5, and now we'll do rank 4. We only have 2 minutes left, so let's try to be very expedient. And is everybody ready?
Yes, ready.
Okay, cool. Chris, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, it looks like it is split between Lenny and Jorge. I would still advocate for Lenny because I think it's really helpful. I know Lenny also advocated for Jorge, so if Lenny prefers, then I'd be happy to switch my vote to. But I think that Lenny's done the most outward help more than Jorge in this week, although I do appreciate Jorge's work as well.
And also what I learned by reading and speaking with Dan is the contribution for this week is what counts. Am I right? No. Yeah.
It's both this week and past weeks to some extent.
Past weeks, yeah. I was getting that feeling because it's for this week, and we're short on time, so.
We have like 2 minutes left. Would anybody like to change their vote?
Well, I'll advocate for myself, saying that we already have a lot of marketing and diffusion efforts, and we don't have that much analytical and developing efforts. And besides that, Lenny just said that he would prefer me to go on top of that. So I voted for Lenny, but I can advocate for myself if you guys agree.
If you think so.
So I'm not changing my vote. My vote is still for Lenny. I'm just trying to
break the impasse.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good with me then. We'll rank Jorge at number 4. We're cool with, I think we have consensus there. So now we'll do rank 3 or level 3 rather. Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay. I'm ready. Good.
Not ready yet, but almost.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not okay. 3, 2, 1,
2, 1,
go.
go.
Okay. It looks like Lenny has consensus here, and then we'll move on to level 2. Okay. Is everybody ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, it looks like Chris has 4 consensus, and so it looks like we have reached consensus, and we are at like a minute over time. So I'll hit the close room button now.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for the great meeting. This was fun and exciting and last minute.
You kill it next time, Ion.
Yeah, I know. I know I haven't done much. I know that. But then looking forward to the website.
Thanks for the nice words.
Also, you've done. Yeah.
Could everyone post EOS names?
The advantage of having me is that
let's focus on the
names.
The EOS names. Yes.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and while everybody's please writing your EOS names here, and I'll also just say quickly, I really appreciate I really appreciate everything that you've been doing, Jorn, and also Chris too. You guys are doing like super helpful work. So I appreciate everybody, but especially feel like it's helpful to save you guys.
It's 3, 2, 1.
Missing for the group. Wow, so much people are.
Oh shit.
There it is. We end up.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone reached the time limit.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think so. Our group had a very last minute process, so it was exciting.
Okay.
Any issues with any groups with posting with the app?
No.
Okay, cool. Yeah, one thing to note, Marco caught it, which was good. We only had 4 accounts that we tried posting, so we were getting the error that like no EOS account existed, but it was because we needed that 5th, so that level 2 to be filled out. So we put eden.fractal. But since this is still a manual process too, yeah, I'll give some input on that when we go to do the payout. But basically for our level 2, Carlos, who's new to this community, he's working on setting up his EOS account, so he didn't have one handy to give. But in replace of we put eden.fractal, but ideally that's where his account will go, and so he's going to get us his EOS account hopefully here in the next couple of days, and let us know, and then we'll include him.
Okay, yeah, we had to do the same in our group. We were only 4, and for the 5th member we put it in ƒractal as well, and it worked perfectly. We just had to figure it out, but in the end it worked.
Sweet deal.
Yeah.
Okay, and then before I guess we jump into any topics, I'll give a little bit of time, probably like 5 minutes, hopefully, and then just like free flow discussion, unless anyone wants to jump into some topics right now. I don't want to distract people from posting their results.
Yeah, about that, the first time I tried the app, when I submitted the vote, went in like in a second. But in the last time, I was checking, if I was checking the vote of the others in the group, and I didn't see that go through. So does that voting goes through only after a certain amount of people vote, or is there something like that for the delay?
So your question is if there's a delay or time limit for casting our vote?
I know it's after I submit the vote in the app, does the transaction takes place instantly, or is there a delay or something? I noticed some delay last time in the block explorer.
Oh, gotcha. So what you're saying is like from when you submitted the transaction to when it gets posted on blocks?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Hey guys, I just posted our EOS account names on the chat. Please let me know if those are correct. And can somebody please post the app link?
I believe that those EOS accounts are all correct. And here's the link. Beat you to it, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say beat me to it as well. I just copied it.
Fastest one.
Yeah,
I was thinking. Sorry, please
go ahead.
I was going to make kind of a random comment. I was thinking we'd maybe do more fun things with the Eden like respect and stuff. There's some topics that if we have time today that I'd like to maybe just bring up and see what people think. Also, what Charles was saying before sounds good, but yeah, maybe I'll leave it for that. I was going to make a joke, maybe like the first person to share the link gets 5 respect or something like that, but I don't think it's really a good idea in this situation.
Yeah, no. We have fun coins. Let's use fun coins. Getting started.
Yeah, exactly. Fun coins. I like it.
Yeah, what's cool too, I guess, well, not to go too far off this, like probably like a side tangent, but I saw, Chris is playing with like making coins. That could be, anyone here can do that, right? You can make your own coin and we could have fun with that as well within this meeting too. That also kind of incentivizes, like, it's not an NFT, but, and part of me too is like, we can go ahead and start creating our, like, if anyone wants to create NFTs and distribute them here, feel free to do that as well. That's something that, ideally I would like to get in the pipeline also, is like, maybe we just, there's no reason we can't just start doing that. And then like, I don't know how hard it is to create an NFT. I haven't dove that deep into it, but partly with like what Chuck was doing, I know that they're working on doing that and being able to count the NFTs, but I don't feel like that should be too complex of a system. I may be wrong, but if we have NFTs that's coming from somebody, then that's a way that we can, it's on data, we can later capture it. And that's a way to measure like whatever the purpose of that NFT is, whether that's an NFT or NTT for like participation to use as a metric.
You could do it through Atomic Assets. They make it pretty easy. There's a walkthrough.
And I did one through the Atomic Hub. I think it costs a little bit RAM, but then you can have entities. You just have to toggle that option, non-transferable, only burnable. And I did one, but it cost a little. I don't know about any other options though.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
If anybody could figure out how to do that, that'd be much appreciated, especially because like on the website, and in a lot of like just what we've spoken about, we spoke about how people can earn the EOS and Eden Respect and NFTs by participating in events. And lately, Chuck, I don't think he hasn't joined the events recently, and I don't think that he's been doing NFTs. So currently, and like I suppose the past few weeks, Eden ƒractal account put out a Twitter account saying NFTs, but I don't think we did send out the NFTs yet. So if anybody could help make some cool NFTs, I'd also be happy to contribute some artwork to the NFTs, or if anybody else wants to as well, then that would be cool and much appreciated for the community.
It's pretty easy to create an NFT on voice.com also. That's the only place I've created an NFT. That's real easy.
I would say do it on Atomic Assets because that seems to be what everybody uses. Right.
Yeah, I would say Atomic Assets too, because voice locks you into. I think that if you want to send your NFT to EOS, it costs like 5 EOS, something like that, like something silly. And
wow, okay.
Yeah, I think I've heard that. So just using Atomic Hub and doing it straight on EOS, I think would be the best.
So the idea is that when you participate, you create your own NFT, or that you're asking for someone to help you set it up so that you can generate them as the host and pass them out. Is that what you're asking?
Well, anybody can do it. It's like when Chuck did it for the first, I don't know, 5 weeks or 6 weeks, something like that. And then Chuck just distributed from his account. And at some point he asked if I could do it if he wasn't there, but then he wound up being there. And so he just did it directly from his account. So if anybody could do that, that'd be very much appreciated by the community. I could also help, but I mean, I'm also just like the Zoom host too, so I don't need to necessarily do that. Although I'm happy to help it if it's helpful.
I've done it before on Atomic Hub. If you want to give me the graphics and the descriptions and stuff, I could put them together.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I have a bunch of artwork that I made for Eden Fractal and Eden. I don't have like much time to make a lot of it. Thanks everyone, or rather thanks, Dwayne. Have a great day too. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, thanks for coming, Dwayne.
Yeah, so I'm happy to contribute some of the artwork. I don't know if I have enough artwork to do like a different artwork every week. Although we could just make like slight changes to the artwork every week and keep them simple, I guess. If anybody else would like to contribute any sort of artwork or any sort of thing like that too, that would be also much appreciated. And then maybe we can talk later about this, Chris, in addition to the other website stuff we were talking about.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, that'd be cool. Especially too, I think it's also, this is open to anyone. Like the way I view NFTs is like, if you're distributing them, you're the artist. And so then how much you distribute, how often you distribute, that all kind of has an impact on like, you know, the value of your NFTs and how, like, I think in the future, right, when people go to value it. But if Chris, you or anyone else too here who wants to take an initiative that maybe, you know, because I'm not sure what Chuck's doing, but also, you know, right now he's not here. So we can set up our own one that if we're wanting to like basically keep it where it's like, okay, this is kind of like the Eden Fractal issued NFT account that we're going to be using. You know, that can be something that we set up too, and then later adopt officially once we have the, you know, the governance mechanisms in place. And then we can, you know, depending on how the NFTs work, we can decentralize it with the MSIGs and stuff though too. But yeah, just some ideas. Like I said, either way, one way I see like how I would like to use NFTs too one day is once I've gotten that figured out, well, that could be something like if, like, let's say I grow as an influencer, I can bring people in by saying like, hey, I'm going to give out NFTs to just whoever ends up being randomized in my group, right? So that's a way to kind of add value, a little bit of rarity to my NFTs, and it adds a little bit more of a fun like raffle factor to like coming here to come participate. But then you're you know, dependent on the decentralization, or I mean the randomization part of this whole process. But then it's cool because then it's a way to, yeah, kind of make your NFT unique. And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like our own little trading cards or however you want to look at NFTs. But Chris,
I would say any token, fungible or non-fungible, I think they should have some utility, especially the NFTs, because I mean, cool artwork's nice, but I think it should have some sort of function other than just being a pretty JPEG.
Right. I think that does add more value in the longer term. It's like I said, also very dependent on who's issuing it too, right? So if you're somebody who only issues a couple and they put a lot of work into that art, and like, yes, it can be copied, but it's not issued by that person who created the art, then that's where the value lies. I've thought a lot about copyright, for example. The days of copyright and intellectual property, I think, is over. I think it's kind of, I don't know if I agree with that, because it's kind of like, oh, I came up with an idea, this is my right. Okay, well, how are you going to enforce that other than doing it through like true force, you know? If you're really thinking about it, especially with how decentralized we are with the internet. So now that's what adds value to the NFT, because people still care about where that originally originated from. Like who issued it, like for example, Nike. Anyone can take the Nike brand, use it on theirs, and that's part of their brand to a certain extent, right? There's no official affiliation with Nike, but what's going to be worth more though is if like Nike's like, well, hey, I actually am partnered with this person, so we are going to back them through authenticating through an NFT to say that yes, we officially are partnered with them. And so now that has a little bit more value than, you know, probably all the other Nikes that are floating around that doesn't have that official like authentication stamp through an NFT. And that's kind of how I'm starting to see NFTs. Obviously, we're still very early. And yeah, sorry, Marco, go ahead.
All right, so I did experiment with NFTs a couple of times. I had to recreate the account. I'm not familiar how, I'm not sure how you can alter an account once you start it. I did learn some stuff with CryptoWriter that started adding some advanced applications, because there are really essentially two types of NFTs on Atomic Hub. There is the easy one that's kind of just got the basic features, and then there's one that you can attach APIs to or smart contracts and stuff like that, where you can manipulate a lot of stuff, a lot more stuff than developers who had already done stuff before CryptoWriter learned to do. Cross-chain bridges and stuff like that, I believe, are tied into that whole mechanism there. So when starting out, the assumption, unless someone's got a real good handle on it and can demonstrate it to us, the assumption would be that whatever NFTs we start with now, we're not going to want to implement later. So maybe a test, something called test something. But I did have the idea just now, moments in time. Something mentioned, something labeled, something like that. And the idea behind the NFT would be that by holding this NFT, you indicate a certain value to our little network community, a certain place in time, moment in time, where the community saw your work, even tie how much respect to it by doing 6 different levels of it, the way Dwayne does with the Alien Worlds fractal. So just by setting up the NFT levels and ranks and stuff like that, a lot of information can be discerned from that. And then you don't need to adjust the NFT much itself. If you're going to change it each week, even just a little bit anyway, you have that visual representation that you can draw from. Anyway, so yeah, moments in time would be something that if someone could go back to those NFTs to put into a smart contract, then we can leverage that stuff. Now, the idea being that if it, at worst, at absolute worst, they could just copy paste the whole history of the test one to the new one and then do something with that. It allows us to play around, allows us to learn, and it doesn't lock us into an NFT standard that becomes hard to change, has some value behind it, like a lot of projects do. So when you get a new project started up or you're testing flight or something like that, you don't have all the bells and whistles on there, you don't put the coat of paint on there, and you try to keep it as simple as possible. And moments in time seems like the simplest possible idea. On this day, this person was here with this group.
Yeah, and that to me seems almost more like a NTT, but also another thing too that I've thought about is like even like for myself, like if I were to issue NFTs, right? Like if you're coming from the perspective as of an artist, so I agree with Chris. Like it like utility obviously has more. I don't know if intrinsic value is the right way to describe it, but like apparent value, right? If you can use it some way, it's gonna have like that has more value than rather than it just being like kind of like a card of a badge of like you know, this is from this person. But an artist can choose to be like, all right, I'm issuing this NFT, but you know, anyone who holds this NFT, and this is more of a verbal, I mean, I guess you could technically code it, but also I think if you tie it more to the reputation of the person who's issuing the NFT, they could verbally kind of state like, okay, I'm releasing these NFTs. I'm going to have like basically the way I could see these NFTs playing out is anyone who owns this NFT later on, I'm going to come and circle back to, you know, these initial NFT holders and create a better one that maybe has utility, but then you have to burn it, so you still have to hold it. And so then there's like kind of like the value of the future, and so then that, you know, that falls more on the reputation.
The one thing
of a
is
person
the
and
burn
trust.
mechanism. The burn mechanism is elaborate in CryptoFinity from CryptoWriter. So the question I would ask, and you're right. So the first question in this whole project would be, can we burn one of the non-advanced NFT things? So the simplest way to create an NFT, can you burn that and tie that to a smart contract? I think that's an easy question that most Atomic Hub developers can answer. So, make sense?
Your question?
Question, statement, logic. Can we burn the simplest forms of NFTs and tie them to another NFT project? Or do you need the advanced version of that to do that? It seems like the easiest programmer question to ask.
Yeah, I mean, when I think also like so what we're doing here too, right, is like we're posting to the blockchain, so that makes it more official. But yeah, we can very much do a lot of things manually too, right? So we're not bound to, like, obviously as soon as we get onto like where everything starts to be official and then there's no changing it, that's when it becomes even more valuable. But then also right now, in more of a trust, like, you know, we're a smaller community, so the trust is a little bit easier, right? Because like if one person kind of does something that goes against like the trust of the community, that affects their reputation within the community. And you know, like I think that kind of helps as far as like how we deal with what we're doing here. Like as long as we reach consensus here, and then we, you know, if it's documented through video, like as long as somebody has that video, then that right there is almost as valid as just posting to a blockchain, because that's proof. Now, I think blockchain also helps with future videos with like deep fakes, and then it's going to be like, well, if you see a video, maybe even fake, like even stuff that you may have said, you'll always be able to. I think it also protects people from that too, right? From mistakes that have been made on the internet. Like unless they post it on the blockchain themselves and authenticate it themselves, then they can always claim, oh, deep fake, or it was you know, manufactured by somebody else. So I think that's another kind of, I mean, that like I said, this might be more of another tangent, but like of how I see, you know, blockchain helping like humanity as a whole is like now it starts to allow individuals to now post and authenticate like this is from me, because now there's all these other technologies like deep fake that could make things look like I said or did something, and maybe you did, but then if you don't want to really officially post that to your name, by not participating in something that's posting to the blockchain, or like if you take a video and then you're like, okay, this is mine, I'm posting it to the blockchain, it's verified to my account that like I've kind of KYC'd, so there's the linkage between like what makes it officially mine. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a signature is
essentially signature. Yep.
Yeah, the signature is stronger than anything. Yeah, it's the strongest. Is this group in consensus in terms of what they're planning on doing when Fractally comes out with all of their software? Or are you guys trying to develop your own system separate from Fractally, or are you open to what's happening with the Fractally software, the Dan effort? Dan Larimer?
I think that generally speaking, the group hasn't reached consensus about that, and we're kind of playing it by ear. We've talked about it several times, and many people have shared opinions. My thought is that we should use whatever tools are most helpful for empowering the Eden and EOS community and empowering communities with Eden Fractal. We have lots of tooling that's built on EOS.io right now, like the UI and the automated distribution of tokens, and the ability to sign a smart contract or to sign a Fractal or an Eden Fractal contributor agreement on chain. And there's other functionalities that are really exciting coming soon too. On the recent chief delegate call, I was also advocating that the EOS network help fund development of Eden Fractal tooling, because I think that this tooling is incredibly important and helpful for everyone in the world, and it's much better if the EOS network were to also help build this tool in addition to the Fractally team, so that, you know, there's more teams building these great tools. But we'll see how it goes and play it by ear, I guess. And that's just my opinion. I think everybody in the group has, you know, different thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think ideally the most important thing here is we reach we need to adopt some form of like governance so that we can collectively come to consensus within this participating community to make decisions and move forward to officially accept things. I think also some thoughts though is like, you know, we're a small community right now, and it's a good thing though too. We're building trust amongst each other. That allows us to be more robust though as well, right? So we're not bound to like hard-coded stuff. So when we do adopt things that's hard-coded, we need to be very conscious of that, of like how that affects our flexibility to be able to move and pivot. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things between like the Eden Fractal and like the original Eden community. Like we still announce ourselves as part of the Eden community, but we're willing to do things in the most efficient way. Like for me, and this probably Eden town hall discussion, but like when it comes to, funding the current system, like that's not efficient to be spending a ton of money on the system if it's just to kind of govern our currently smaller community. Like when we're ready to put more money into that system, then it's when we're expecting more throughput of people coming in. And then that makes sense of why we would want a system to help us as a small community to be able to manage it, where like, yeah, now, because now you're having a lot more people come in, now we need to have some systems to help make it more trustless, instead of now it's all dependent on like a small amount of members within the community.
That's the biggest thing. That's the difference between general aviation and the airlines. That's the difference between aviation and the trucking industry or the train industry. So just imagine if you have the people who train, educate the executives of the rail, and they're training the same people that do the airline industry as far as goods moving around, Amazon goods, postal service and stuff like that. The idea and the concept of something like flexibility, make a mistake or whatever, the whole system is designed just point to point. Something like the hub and spoke came out in 80s or whatever. And when you get things occurring at the managerial level of pilots and cockpit crew, think of management occurring inside a truck or inside the conductor station. It's not applicable to other things, but because it has more applicability in aviation, and because aviation leads the economy, and aviation can lead the economy because its turnover is hours, not weeks, like it is in the shipping industry. So if we make 10 mistakes in aviation, we can correct 10 mistakes in aviation before the ship crosses the line or a rail gets somewhere. So sometimes these things aren't applicable. Now, blockchain, because we have trust, that we have a permanent ledgers that everyone can write to, some things aren't going to be applicable. Aviation doesn't want to be inefficient because cargo is expensive. Cargo is not expensive in the world we live in today, in the rail industry or in the airline industry as much, because you're flying from place to place. But in a general aviation aircraft, you're flying to destinations that don't have the same infrastructure as the airlines. So I know I'm jumping between the two, but essentially the dominant manager, the dominant perspective in aviation, the efficiency of what we're talking about now, is much like the trucking industry, because if something doesn't get through, just call the truck. The truck is a couple hours behind on a road and fix the issue. But not if you're flying to an island, which aviation indistinguishes water and land, or mountains, or where there are no roads. So when you're preparing for these things, the perspective of it is, we can question everything that has come before us that's not blockchain based. And it doesn't transfer back and forth because we aren't in innovation. So I brought up the testing environment, and the question I was bringing up is what's going to be permanent, what's going to be not, as Felix brought up. We don't have a server administrator to change these things. We would require group consensus. So keeping that perspective in mind allows us to move forward faster. The ENF is a beautiful model. They know what they're doing, those developers. Block one is a horrible model. But again, both are in blockchain. So if you want to take a look, B1 is like the airline industry. Their administrators are educated traditionally worldwide of the highest level of the shipping industry. And then here comes the ENF, and they're not just in blockchain, but they fly their own aircraft like Harrison Ford, or some of the astronauts, and one of the astronauts that was a senator who recently died. So they're not just, the ENF is not just understanding aviation, understands general aviation. So it understands how to get something to a project that's in isolation. If that helps.
And so I don't know if it's just me, but it's sometimes a little bit difficult to follow all the aviation metaphors and relationships, Marco, because I'm not as familiar with it. So I appreciate you sharing your perspective. I'm not sure if other people understood much more than I did, but I was kind of confused. I also did want to just ask too, a logistical matter. So in group, I think 2 or 3, I think Carlos is in that group, but I think Felix, you said that Carlos didn't have an EOS account. So you just put an Eden.fractal account. Is that correct?
Yeah, when we submitted, first we tried to submit with like, we didn't have Eden.fractal, but you have to have more than 4 to submit on chain. So we just put Eden.fractal, but I just put it in the notes here in the Zoom chat just for reference. So whenever we go to do the distribution, hopefully those notes will kind of like remind us to be like, hey, if Carlos has an account by then, we'll just plug that in to where the Eden.fractal was on chain. That makes sense.
Okay, right. I see. And Carlos, you think that you'd be able to make a EOS account sometime in the next few days? And then if you need any help, we'd be happy to help you. Or there's also EOS support as well who can help with that, but it's quite easy on Anchor app.
Felix, were you able to actually make that transaction? I was not on my side.
Yes. What error were you getting, or what was happening when you?
My Anchor got completely seized, and it actually seized my Zoom, so I had to close Anchor. So after this call, I'll try again, for sure. Yeah.
Perry, so the window to submit a vote is only for the next 32 minutes or so.
Okay.
So if you're able to try again during the call, that would be appreciated, because technically you guys had 5 people in the group and only 3 people have submitted on chain. I mean, you guys have all confirmed on video, I believe, but it's just better if you're able to get that in there. And then also, Carlos, I heard you, or I saw you moving your mouth before, but you're muted at the time. So I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but do you think you'll be able to make an account sometime soon? And do you need help with that?
Yes, I will get you there in through Discord. Yeah, Felix, I will get him there.
Okay.
Dan, too, real quick. So what is this time window that you're referencing for? Like, is there something in with the React app, or yeah?
Yes. Yeah. So Vlad could speak to it more if Vlad's listening, but essentially when Vlad built the React app, he put in a timer so that all votes need to be submitted by essentially 15 UTC. There's a 2-hour timer from when it starts. I see Vlad's unmuted too. Would you like to share any more details about that, Vlad, or did I get anything incorrect?
It's on the smart contract side. So before each election, I trigger one action that sets the timer. So yeah, it's 2 hours.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that, but that's nice to know. Okay. But this is also a manual process still too, right? So I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, we ideally, if we can have this on chain, so but we can always reference it to the chat, right? Because nothing's tying. This React app is not yet tying into our distribution protocol, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And doing it in the chat helps, although that isn't recorded. You know, generally speaking, I do save the chat and I have a file in my folder, but having it on video is a better way of confirming. So I don't know. I suppose you probably recorded, Felix, but maybe if anybody would like to just confirm that, who else is in your room? I know that Perry said that you had, but basically you guys had it where the rankings were Felix, Perry, Marco, Nicholas, and then Carlos. So that's where everybody agreed to that.
Yeah, and the chat file does get saved. I know that probably could be edited too, but yeah. But yeah, I see Charles, you have your hand raised.
Yeah. Just want to briefly go back to the question: what will we do with Fractally? We'll use their tools, etc. So we first created this group here, a fractal dedicated to EOS network to test things, to just test the weekly meetings. We all got interested by that. We figured out it could be useful to test it out. That's why we began to do this. And I wanted to remind that whatever we do, we'll decide it together. So we'll figure out the most ranked members from each week, and we'll decide together if we use their tools or not. But we'll do it slowly, but together, but surely. And last week, when I was at the Ƒractal meetings, I was with Dan Larimer and 2 other Ƒractal developers, and they said they, in 2 weeks' time, will have the ability to use their UI for voting. So in 2 weeks' time at Ƒractal, we may already be able to use their tools for voting, and we'll see live how that works and how does it help, how much, etc. So yeah, just wanted to go back and say that whatever we do, we'll figure out together. We'll vote on it and decide on it together, what we'll do. And yeah, I'm pretty sure in the future, Eden will do its own thing as well. Eden, as we know it, will do its own thing. Maybe we'll go over to IFA, maybe we'll evolve in some other ways. We don't know. But basically, I'm sure that each Eden, as we know it in each language, would prefer its own way of figuring out how to govern itself. So it's not a big deal if each Eden uses something different. Everyone is free to use their own tools or one they prefer. No problem with that in the end, I think, for me. But for this Ƒractal, I'm pretty much in love with what Ƒractal have been working on so far.
Sweet. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Charles.
Yeah, thanks, Charles.
And yeah, to
on
add,
that note, yeah, good.
Yeah, I was gonna say also through Charles' lead, I think it's great. Everyone here share what you feel, reaffirm things too, right? That gives us a better general sense of where everyone's at in this community, so that yeah, we're moving together. It's not just the ones who choose to speak up. If you have something you want to disagree, or just reaffirm too, that that helps, because that gives everyone here who's listening, paying attention, a better idea too of the sentiment of everyone here. Because ideally, yeah, I value this community the most right now, right? Because this is the closest to, I feel like, being able to express, like, we're very aligned in our views, right? And so there's power in that. We've all found common interests, and so now we can move together and we all bring our own things to the table. And yeah, we're starting to fractionalize within Eden, right? Like fractals are forming within Eden unofficially in a way, right? Where all little communities are all finding itself, and now it's going to be which communities can work the most efficiently together are the ones that's going to really establish themselves as the leaders, I think, within Eden, as like, if we're looking at like tying it back to the beginning, right, of like the Eden smart contract and the treasury. But there's still ways like this Eden Fractal could directly get funding from the ENF as well too, and so then that may be a way to pull other people from Eden over here as well. But these are all things to but yeah. And yeah, I'll let.
And just wanted to say, not everyone is comfortable speaking up verbally, so don't hesitate to post your own findings and what you think on the Discord of Eden and Eden Fractal if you prefer, and anytime. And on that note, I gotta go, but I'll follow the rest of the meeting later for the recording. Just want to say, see you all, and thank you for today's meeting. It was a great time, as always. See you all.
Thank you, Charles. Take care.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles. Great seeing you as always, too. And yeah, really appreciate your thoughts. I see we have 4 people's hands up, so I was just gonna also say that I totally agree with what Charles is saying. Also, feel free. I know that some people haven't spoken much in the chat, but both in the Discord and then also here, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share, then that'd be great to hear from everybody. And then also that tool that the Ƒractal team is building that might be open source in the next couple of weeks. If anybody hasn't seen that, the video on that the Ƒractal team posted recently looks really awesome and really helpful. So I'm really excited about that. But anyway, I see, I don't know who had their hands up first, whether it's Jordan or Jorge or Lenny or Perry.
Yeah, I see Lenny. I don't know if it goes in order, but I see it. Lenny, I think.
It does go in order. Lenny goes first.
Yeah,
Lenny.
I believe I was first.
Lenny, Jorge.
Yeah. Yes. One thing that we're consuming time on to and fro is whether we're going to vote for ourselves in the group rooms. And we've got to finalize that one way or other, I think. So I would suggest just very briefly that maybe have a discussion time next 5-10 minutes next week. And then the week after we confirm. Because if we're going to, like in my room today, we had a bit of a discussion and similar. And then in the end, I've been pondering myself back and forth and just made a recent decision that that is probably the best way. But we had a majority that basically said, okay, no, we don't vote on ourselves. But at the same time, it should be consistent, I believe, over the rooms. And I also want to put that out there to the leadership of the Eden Fractal, which I consider kind of be Dan and Felix for now. And, you know, that put something together. And so people also think about it. We are not all here. Many have left already. But so people think about it and really ponder and feel ready maybe 2 weeks from now to, okay, this is how we vote and see how we do it. Fractally, of course, it is everyone can vote for themselves, etc., etc. Maybe it's even a good idea that we might go the other way if we have a majority anyway going that way. But I'm just putting it out there. We need to decide one way or the other and then follow that. We have agreements and stuff going to get in place, and it should be firmed up. Let's put it that way. Thanks.
Keep as an option. That's the voting for yourself is a big deal. I believe I'm a big fan of Lenny. And I would say that maybe make a mandate to ask the question at the beginning. But if you take that away, it's almost like forcing people to be either have a Democratic viewpoint or a Republican viewpoint. Either do you support yourself all the way through, or do you put the community's need ahead of yours? So I'm absolutely against deciding absolutely either way. And I'm mostly against removing the option to vote for yourself, because I believe it could have consequences down the road. But the option, all in, I believe that we should start every meeting with that.
Yeah, so some quick thoughts. I do think it will be beneficial, and I'm hoping I have the time to do so. For our before meeting, I think having a video that kind of covers those basic topics, addressing them, will help, I think, solve what Lenny's trying to get at. Because, yeah, I think if we just at least have that, yeah, if at the beginning of the meeting, right, if that's discussed, kind of how what I did in my group was basically like, hey, I'm choosing to take myself out of the vote, but it's up to everyone to choose how you want to do so. But this is my reasoning why. And, you know, if that's seen before at the beginning of the meeting, people can choose, you know, at least it's like fresh in their minds. They've been, you know, proposed like what I find to be beneficial. And obviously I think I'm open to hearing disputes as to why, but yeah, I'm not going too deep into that so that Jorge can talk. But yeah, my whole thing is it's dependent, because I voted for myself last time in the Fractally meeting, but that was because in the group that I was in, I knew I had to. But if I feel like I'm in the room, I'm fine with like addressing that, be like, hey, I will remove myself, but I will advocate afterwards, like from the vote itself. But like, again, like I said, I think I can make some content to maybe help clarify my thought process and whether people choose, like at the end of the day, yeah, everyone should be able to choose what they want to do until we really find something that we're like, we can all concretely like be like, okay, yes, this makes the most sense, because, and it's not going to divide our community one way or the other.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick before you go, Jorge, I know that you have your hands raised, but there's 2 links that were shared in the chat. One is the consortium app, which is the voting app that Vlad is building. It's very helpful. And then also I shared a link for interim consensus process. As we've been talking about, I think this is a way that we can make community decisions like this. So I'd recommend everybody check it out. We spoke about it, but basically using the same process that Fractally has for making community decisions like this. And I agree with Lenny. I think that just having the discussion is holding back the community. And so the more that we can just make decisions and then move on, that's in the best interest of the community. My vote, and Dan Armour and James Martin have explained this well, like compelling cases why I think that it makes sense to be able to vote for yourself. But I think either way, like just figuring it out, like Lenny was saying, with these voting tools is a helpful process. Sorry for jumping in, Jorge, and please share your thoughts now.
Yes, thank you. Well, several things. First of all, I think the option, well, thank you all for considering this. I know I've been the most strong proponent against voting for himself. And I agree with Lenny and Dan. We need to establish a definite protocol and just follow it so that we don't have all this discussion every time, and especially in the rooms I am at. One point I want to highlight is there is this guy which is doing a research and simulation on these decentralized democratic processes. His name is his name is Ackerman, Jordan Ackerman. He's in the Santa Fe Institute. He just highlighted this week in the simulation group in Telegram that there is clearly a double dipping effect from the team's formation in the Fractal ecosystem. And that's because, according to Dan and James Smart, when you present yourself in a room and you said you're representing your team, people is supposed to not rank yourself, but to rank the whole team. So if for example, your team has 6 members, whatever rank you receive, people is gonna think that it's not about your contributions, but the contributions of the whole team. So they are gonna rank you higher. But because the respect is matched, double matched, all of the members on the team are gonna get ranked higher. But because you are not the only representative of the team, but all the other members are also in other rooms, they are gonna get also ranked higher sixfold, I mean. So there is an exponential double dipping effect of being in a team. And if you add to that, that the member of the team, which is in that room, can self-rank, then the whole thing actually amplifies. So I wanted to point that out for
everything you're saying is spot on. The issue that happens when you remove voting for yourself is the following weeks. When you can vote for yourself, you can say, no, I'm voting for myself this week because of what happened last week. If you don't have that option, you know, there's a problem. Yeah, everything you're saying is spot on.
Yeah, so I'm most concerned about the team's effect here and the interaction, those things, the teams, the way things are being managed, plus self-voting, that will amplify a lot of noise. And finally, another point I wanted to make is that Matt Langston, which created a post several weeks ago, I'm just sharing it right now in my screen. He made a post with this graph, which is very telling. The way Fractal team is operating right now is that whenever a big decision has to be done, the people who rank the highest during that week is going to make that decision. But that isn't data driven. That's just an opinion from Dan or James Smart, which I admire very much, but still they are just opinions. This guy, Matt Langston, actually analyzed the data and came with this graph. In this graph, the vertical axis represents how trustworthy any given opinion is. And the horizontal axis represents the number of meetings that person has attended. So it happens that the most trustworthy opinions are coming from those people that attended the most. And this is powerful because it tells us, for example, that if 1 year from now, we are onboarding 100 people a week or 1,000 people a week, then we will be dealing with a lot of noise, a lot of people giving opinions about things that they don't know about much. But if we find a way to weight people's opinions according to how many meetings they have attended, according to how frequent they come to these meetings, even independently of their the quality of their contributions, we will have a way to protect ourselves from all those noise that onboarding many people could have, while still onboarding that much people. So this is not something that we have to implement that right now, but it's something I think we need to consider. And this ties up with what Felix was saying, which is each community, each fractal is gonna find its own processes. It's gonna do things the best it can. And whatever fractal finds the best way to onboard people the fastest without incurring in too much trouble is gonna do the best. It's gonna perform the best. So these kind of tweaks are the kind of things that make all the difference. So with this, I close my intervention, and thank you all for listening. I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Jorge. I think quick comments on that. I appreciate you doing that, because Matt's posted those things and I've seen it. I'm just like, ooh, that takes some like time to really sit down and try to like comprehend all of that like data analysis, but that's super important. And so like having you kind of being able to interpret that and express that here helps a ton. One quick thing that I did write that I think is interesting as far as the self-voting, and I'll also like, yeah, we're starting to run lower on time, so I don't want to go myself take too much time. But one of the things is right now we're capturing data, so we won't know until we can actually start to observe that data later. So one option is like kind of what was suggested is at the very beginning of the meeting, we state whether we want to self-vote or not. It's just a straight up vote. Am I self-voting or not? Yes or no. And then whatever the majority consensus is, we can capture that data. And then from there, that's an extra thing that we can analyze later. So then we can start to see, okay, the groups that chose to self-vote versus the groups that didn't. And then we can start to see how is that having an impact on everything. And the one thing that stands out a lot to me with what Jorge's brought to the table is noise. Think of noise concept, like of that concept. Anything that's not benefiting and adding like just more trouble and confusion to trying to get straight to the point is what noise is. And so like I think we're trying to identify that like numerically. Those are just some thoughts, but yeah, sorry.
More signal, less noise.
Right. I'm actually feeling Dan's pain here, that this whole conversation is taking a lot of resources. So I'll go for Lenny proposition that we really think through this, and next week we put 10 minutes aside just to discuss and get out of this subject, like really.
10 minutes, Jorge? 10 minutes for this?
I never talk about it again. Or
sorry, I just come in and say I suggested maybe even 2 weeks. I would suggest yes, a 10-minute next week, because meanwhile us guys will actually think about this and read up on it, and then we discuss our findings next week, and then maybe I have to look again, and then the week after we take a decision.
The power to vote for yourself is essentially your power in this fractally community. If you remove that, you no longer have the ability to register to the blockchain unless it's through the voting of someone else. The option identifies that becomes an issue. But if you do remove that vote, you no longer have the direct connection to the blockchain.
So one thing though too, I think which would help, and what I think I should propose here as well, is like if we can come up with something where we want to share topics, and we can break up this post meeting into sections of time, right? Of like, okay, this much time is allocated to talk about this topic, kind of like how the chief delegates are doing their meetings. They have an agenda, and then we can be, kind of time stamped. Like, I know that's like, at least that's kind of where we should probably start to head. Because I think this is good. Like, there's several topics now that are starting to come that we're like, okay, we got to address this, we got to address that. But if we get too consumed with one topic, that might eat into other important topics. But great points, guys. I'm not sure if anyone else has any comments. If not, maybe Gian, if you want to go.
Okay. So I wanted to ask about the, people asking about when Fractal is finish the product, do we move on? Or no, I don't know much about that. But then there's also, we are building something here, right? We are putting up the parallelogram, and we are building, I think we are building some softwares here. And what happens, the Fractal stuff is open source, so we use that and build this together, or just move on to that completely, move on to that platform. Maybe I'm getting things wrong, but it's something I want to ask.
Go ahead. I'll go if no one else is ready.
I was going to say I'm not totally sure what the question was. Maybe if you'd like to restate it, Sean.
Yeah, it's like no, in my understanding, Fractal and they're building stuff for DAOs and stuff. That's another product, or it's a blockchain, I think. And then there is option for us to build a community there on that using Fractal. Here we are also building, as per the formula brand, we are building open source softwares anyone can use, right? So when Fractal is ready, they have all the setup. So it's like we move on to that platform, or we use something from there. It's open source, so we use something, use stuff from there and build our own thing, or just move on to them. It's something I get confused with.
Yeah, that's what Perry was asking about before, I think, and we're figuring out as a community we can go either way. We can use the tools that Fractal's building. They're also open source, a lot of it too, or will all be open source. Also the tool that Vlad and James Martin have been building on EOS 2. We can decide as we go along. I don't think anybody knows for sure what we'll do. As Charles was saying before, we can decide as a community. And also as Felix was saying too, like everybody who's showing up here and earning respect and so forth can have a voice in what we think is best to do so going forward. Does that help clarify?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, if we then decide to just completely move on to the Fractal platform, then we said we'll be building something here. So that would be if we move on completely. Is there any problem like that?
Well, I think that either way, our goal is to help Eden and help EOS and help empower communities, and we can use whatever tool helps us do that best, whether it's using the Fractal software and chain or built on EOS. And then it's also dependent it's also partially dependent on the funding that the EOS network is willing to provide to help support Fractal software and EOS too. So, we'll see how it goes. As I was advocating before, I think we should continue building on EOS, but then also continue working closely with the Genesis Fractal, because I think that both these communities are providing great value, and the more software for this Fractal governance process, the better.
Yeah, in my opinion about that the whole thing, from what I see as a new member, everyone is discussing about many things, and there's a lot going on in the background about how to build something to organize or get everyone together. But then not one person know exactly what's going on. So it's like Lenny always say, we should be aware. Every member should be aware of what is going on. But then, I don't think if we pick someone from the group and ask them, do you know what is going on with Eden? I don't think anyone can explain what's going on completely. So they know some people know some stuff. I don't think everyone have the whole idea. And for me, this meeting is where I see people. I just attended one session and I saw like 5 or 6 people there, and then I saw all these messages. But then here I can interact with all you guys, all these people from Eden. So I think maybe this can be like a place, and I think Dan has spoke about it. Eden should have weekly meetings for people to meet and together. Maybe this can be the platform. Where, I don't know. It's just my thought. Yeah, and I get what you said about the ƒractal and stuff. Yeah, and I have to. I'm yet to understand a lot, but asking things along the way. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't really get the point New Legend just did. Can somebody please rephrase it?
I think he's asking whether we will use, like the initial point was whether we will use the new ƒractal software or the stuff that we have built on EOS.
Is that it?
Yeah, whether we completely move on to the ƒractal platform, or we take some stuff from there and build our own stuff. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I think
for this ƒractal meeting, that's what you're talking about. This one.
Yeah, this one. I think like in the last Genesis ƒractal meeting, so I heard the recording, and then Dan Larimer was talking about something about the block producers, and he said something like, when a community starts, there is not enough people to create another blockchain kind of thing, so they have the option to, be like another group with the ƒractal or something like that. So that's when I thought, then in ƒractal, the other ƒractals can have their own systems and stuff like that. So maybe we can do it. I don't know if I am talking. I don't know what I'm saying is right or anything. Just I have the confusion before. If someone can give me accurate information, so that'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, I could say, I think basically we're gonna figure that out here, but yeah, we're independent of we're independent, right? So our decisions are gonna be how we choose to do about it. I don't think it's gonna be a straight up like, yes, we're taking everything ƒractally is suggesting. We're gonna have an opinion on every every little thing that we implement over there. But yeah, I would say that's probably the simplest way to answer it. And then I'm gonna have to leave here in 10 minutes, so just a heads up, that's where my recording will end, which will be for the meeting part, but you guys can also continue to extend it. But yeah, I do want to hit like final questions, and then I got to head off. But yeah, so Perry, you got your hand up.
I just wanted to say, I had my hand up much earlier, so there's a lot has been said since then. But basically, I want to register my support for some group within our ecosystem in general to adopt the ƒractal system when it does come out in September or whenever. Somebody's got to do that. And I hope it's this group, but someone should do that. Someone should be trying that out and applying it to the EOS ecosystem. I hope it's this group.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, we got our hands on the pulse, right? We have an Eden ƒractal team that's declared over on ƒractally. And so, that is kind of our mission, is to take everything there. But, the one thing too is like, yeah, well, I think we're very aligned over there as well. But there are a couple of things though, like I just want to just straight up addressing, like Dan Larimer is not a perfect man. So there's going to be some things that we may not agree with. Right. But that's fine, but that's for us to figure out. And then we choose what we want to adopt. Right. If our voice here is not being heard over there, then, this is where we make that distinguisher, right? Through our own adoption. And then we have influence over there. But yeah, I think we got our hands on the pulse. I don't see why we, deviate completely from them. But all I'm saying is, like, I don't think that we're going to be like, yeah, we're independent though from ƒractally as well. Right.
Are you independent from ENF?
Yeah, why would we be tied to the ENF?
I'm not sure, but I thought I heard that you guys are considering receiving funding from ENF.
yeah, that's something that we could propose and ask and then see what happens. But if they provide funding, we're not dependent on them, because if they choose to fund us, it's because they choose to support us, but that doesn't mean they control us.
Yeah, but we all know what receiving funding means.
I mean, the thing is, though, whoever is willing to, my biggest thing, and I really don't want to say this because I don't want this taken in the wrong way. So I am going to say it. So if you see this, don't take it the wrong way, Fractally team. But there is a little bit of me where I'm just like, hey, Dan, you raised funds from Block 1. Those funds are being applied to Fractally and stuff that's going on there. But we need to realize those funds came from the EOS community. And so there needs to be support. And there it has been shown support to the EOS community. They're releasing the open source software, but there's just a couple of things that I'm just like, I've had an open invitation for the Fractally team to come over here. If you're not willing to come over here, I'm going to continue to press this until eventually I will straight up say what I'm sharing here to the team of like, I do feel like some of those funds though need to come back and help the EOS community. You can't, Dan, from Dan Larimer's perspective, yes, you've worked hard and stuff, but those funds though are not all yours in a sense, right? In a way, it's not. If you like, there's been a little bit of dispute with what he thinks, like when it comes to the litigation with Block 1. But my whole thing, and this also extends a little bit too with Brock Pierce. Like I don't want to be calling people out, right? But at the same time, like, hey, anyone who had Block 1 money, you need to be showing some support to the EOS community. We are all a part of the EOS community to a certain extent. And in that way is how I want to receive funding, but not from a point where you're controlling. But we need to be able to do this full time. Like I'm stressing hard because I'm trying to do my full-time job, but this is what I'm most passionate about. This is what I want to be full-time in. But and whoever's willing to help us out, I've got a lot of respect for that. But I'm not going to let somebody control me. I've never allowed that. Like no one controls me. I'm independent, right? And so are we here. So that's kind of where I just stand as far as like, yes, if funding comes, like there's respect there, but you're not gonna, you won't control me with funding. If you tell me to do something and I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. I will listen to you and I'll take things in perspective, but no one is going to control me. And and as long as I have a leadership here as well, I'm not going to let anyone control us either. We're independent.
A critical mission of Fractally is cross-platform, nimbleness, being able to be adopted, not just on EOS. The advantage with EOS could simply be looked at as there's no blockchain faster, but I believe Dan went out of his way to ask the developers on EOS to support Fractally's openness to be adopted across chains. As sort of independent software. He wanted to put it on EOS, but even I believe even if he was going to put it on EOS, it still needed to have that ability to have more independence in the EOSIO if another chain wanted to adopt it. That's my perspective.
I'll jump in here with 2 quick notes. One, Jorge said, hey guys, let's raise our hands, please. And I think that's a good point. To some extent, having the natural flow conversation is helpful, but I think in many cases today, people have had their hands raised for a long time, and we should be more respectful of that. Das has their hands raised. Just one thing I wanted to say real quick about what Felix was saying was that I think that the Fractal team is doing like perhaps the most helpful thing possible for EOS by building the software and helping to empower Eden Fractal and Genesis Fractal. So I greatly appreciate that. But anyway, to Das, please share your thoughts.
Thanks. Yeah, so I liked what Perry was implying with basically saying that you know what funding means. Getting funding from someone has a disadvantage that you can become dependent on them. And so I think what Eden Fractal or any other fractal should seek is independence from both EOS and DNF, as well as independence from Fractality. So yeah, and that's why I keep pushing my albedo proposal where basically it's a project outlining how Eden Fractal could incentivize, for example, BPs to fund Eden Fractal. If Eden Fractal wants to live on EOS, which I think it does, then the most legitimate source of funds is these BP, from EOS is BP rewards. Even funds from ENF are the real source of these funds is basically BPs, because they decided to fund ENF. And basically what, if I'm right, what I'm proposing, the project I'm proposing would incentivize BPs to fund this contributors in this Eden Fractal, because that would become a way for BPs to earn more votes. And so in my mind, long term, that's, I believe, as of right now, that this is the best solution for Eden Fractal as far as I see. Yeah, so I have a Pomelo grant, by the way, so feel free to check it out if you want to learn more information. And what else? Regarding what Gian was saying, whether we move completely to Fractally system or we build something else, I think we look what Fractally publishes and take what we need. When talking about whether we move totally to Fractally ecosystem, it's not clear to me. Do we mean that we move to their chain, or just take the parts of software that we need? In my opinion, I don't know what you guys think, but Eden Fractal moving to Fractally chain from EOS would kind of change the initial, I guess, the idea of Eden Fractal. So I think that's not an option. So I don't see Eden Fractal moving completely to Fractally system, because it won't use the Fractally blockchain. But I think that we should take the best parts that we can use for it. And yeah, so that's all of my thoughts regarding what was discussed here.
Well, thank you, Tadas. Yeah, I still need to take some time to go through that white paper. I know I've seen you, advocating a lot for it, and I have been reading kind of people's, like, I guess, responses to it. So yeah, I'm interested in diving deeper on that. I do want to clarify again, because like I said, I got passionate about it, and in case anyone sees this, I want to make it like for me, there's just little bits to me that probably spurt this kind of little bit of frustration of, I don't know. It's going to be dependent on what Fractally delivers for us to be able to integrate the systems. My biggest thing, though, is the win, I think, for all of us here is if EOS is successful through taking, like, truly democratizing EOS, right, through these Fractally processes. And the Fractal Genesis can have it, and the Fractal chain can also have like its own impact too. But it's all first about like putting it all out there for the EOS ecosystem to be able to choose. And through this process, we'll be able to find out, are they willing to truly democratize the system for the people? And that's my biggest thing, is like, I don't want to give up on EOS yet. There's just a little bit of me that feels like Dan kind of has sometimes with some of the ways he says things, but yet he has shown support. So, again, like I said, I'm not trying to like straight up be upset, because it's hard until we know, but I'm just going off of just some initial feelings and thoughts that have come from, that from Larimer himself, that like, I'm just a little like, I don't know. So again, not trying to like, I'm not calling out anyone yet, but like I said, I am holding people to their actions. And so that's going to speak a lot. And right now, so far, Fractally, they've been giving us enough, right? Where I'm still very much hands on the pulse over there, and very like appreciative for what they are bringing. But there is a little bit of sense, though, of hesitation from EOS that I don't really like too much. There's just been comments from Dan Larimer that I've said before that it's like, it's not cool. You got to really realize that, like, hey, people in this EOS community invest in EOS because of your grand vision. And same with Eden. And some of the way that you kind of left is not the coolest way to do things. And that's where it goes back to, like, Dan Larimer's not perfect, but I think he is an open person, well-intentioned guy. And I think through these systems, we will be able to help hold him accountable to certain things as well, right? It's about holding accountability. And my biggest thing over on Fractally is he's got full control. His respect is above everybody else's. And at some point, how big is too much? Yes, he's bringing a whole lot to the table there. So he does deserve a lot of respect, but he's not going, like, I don't think any single person should be, a dominating control. You need to be willing to hear everybody's viewpoint. And I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying, like, things could trend that way. It's just, I'm trying to be cautious. I don't even know if I really want to post this part of, like, where I've, said this stuff, because I don't want to create enemies, right? I love everyone that's working towards this. And a lot of these ideas have been inspired from Dan Larimer himself. But again, he's not perfect. And to truly not be a sheep, we have to have our own mindset, that we can question things, though, too, that he may, he's not perfect. We shouldn't completely follow him into wherever he's going. We got to be able to dispute some things. And that's part of, like, that helps him as well, too. So, yeah.
All hail King Larimer.
No, sir.
Okay, Vlad's got his hands up. What's on your mind, Vlad?
I have a question to Tadas. Could you somehow, in a very simple terms, explain the albedo process?
Yeah, okay. So imagine staking pools. Basically, like you have staking pools in proof of stake systems where you stake for block producers. Here, imagine you stake for fractally processed contributors. And the better fractally contributor performs in Eden fractal meeting, the more the staker has opportunity to earn. He earns some special token I call AR. Maybe let's talk about its utility later. But yeah, that's the point. EOS token holders would be staking EOS on fractally contributors and earning AR token proportionately to how well their selected contributors perform. And the catch is that in order to be able to stake for a contributor, you have to vote for BPs that this contributor is voting for. So in this way, the better contributor performs in fractal meetings, the more EOS token holders will stake for him. And that means that more EOS will be voting for the same BPs that contributor is choosing. So basically, you make EOS staking pools reflect the distribution of respect. So, and you utilize that EOS to vote for BPs. And from perspective of BPs, it's very interesting because supporting fractal contributors so that they perform better in Eden fractal meetings becomes a way for them to earn more votes. And that's creates another source of funding, potential source of funding for Eden fractal contributors. So you get this incentive loop. Yeah, so that's, I guess, the essence of the idea. And I propose that our token would have a utility in providing off-chain infrastructure for dApps. I think that's the most logical source of utility because dApps need all kinds of infrastructure like storage and notification services and so on, besides just smart contracts that EOS currently provides. Yeah, is that clear, or do you have any questions?
Yeah, now I understood it. So yeah, you could also, the fractal contributors could also be could have requirement to become proxies. So that way, if you stake for them, then you are only able to stake for them if you choose them as your proxies for your EOS. That could be.
Yes,
could it be built that way as well? Yeah.
Yes, that's one way of doing it. I haven't figured out the exact details if proxy mechanism will be used. I have some concerns about that maybe your staker having to update his votes once Fractal contributor changes his votes. Maybe that's desirable, and maybe that's why we don't want to use contributors as proxies, but I'm still considering this idea. So, but yeah, that's one way of looking at it, that Fractal contributors serve as proxies for which your stakeholders choose.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, Dan or Perry, if you guys have some comments, I'm gonna have to head off here in a bit.
Sounds good. Thanks, Felix. I have a lot that is very interesting to say, and yeah, thanks, Vlad, for asking those questions to Das too. That helped me understand Das's proposal much better, and I'm looking forward to listening again at some point soon. I know Perry and Jorge want to speak, so I don't want to be too long. And there's a lot of exciting things I want to share that I'll share either now or later or sometime. Felix, I was also just taking like live timestamps. I think we talked about that. It works really well, so I think it might be a little way to save time. And if you want the rest of the video after you leave, then you can feel free to let me know, and I can send it to you. And then also I wanted to mention Giorn shared in the Telegram chat an Eden Games Club link too. Oh, and there's also live transcription enabled for the meeting too. A participant request that. Thank you for requesting. I kind of forgot about that service, and maybe that can be a really helpful feature for us. Maybe we should do that for every meeting. Seems like a really good idea. Cool. So I'll make a note to remember that. And yeah, I was going to mention Jorn shared Eden Games Club, and he shared a Telegram link for it. I just joined it, and he made an EOS account called Eden Games Club, and we could try out some different things. That was an interesting discussion that we had during the Eden Town Hall, and I think that like if one of our goals can be like, obviously we want to do a lot of productive work and create a lot of value with, you know, in rather serious ways. But I think also if we could just maximize the amount of fun that everybody's having at these meetings and also throughout the EOS and Eden community, then like if we can kind of bring the fun to EOS and also share it, like that's really helpful for growing the community and really cool. So I thank Jorn for starting that. Also thanks Marco for just joining, and I'm looking forward to trying the Telegram games as well as exploring many other fun things that we can do. And there's a bunch of other stuff that I had written, but I'll save it for later, and I'll pass it on to Perry or Jorge now. You muted, Perry.
Thank you very much. I wanted to comment on what Felix was saying about Dan and Fractally, and I just want to maybe suggest that Felix, you look at the ENF with the same critical eye as you're looking at Dan and Fractally, keeping in mind that Dan, and you did mention this, that Dan is the creator of all of these things that we're working on, including this here, and the chain itself, and that the ENF has kind of inserted itself in this position. And so that I just ask you consider that when you're talking about Dan taking things over and, you know, stealing, or not stealing, but, you know, taking money that's not his. You know, I look at the ENF in that way. So that's my feedback on that. And then Tadas, I'm interested to know if you've got a link for your Pomelo project. I'd like to learn more about it. And if you're doing this, are you doing this recursively? And if you were doing it recursively, it seems like it would be like a derivative. You're creating like a derivative. I'm not sure if that's healthy for the voting process. And I'd be curious to know what Jorge thinks. He's got his hand up. I know he's going to talk after me. But creating something that appears like a derivative of a vote is going to encourage people to gamble, or encourage people to vote in such a way that they financially benefit personally versus the group. So that seems like an attack on the system and not a feature. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Well, first, before giving an opinion regarding Tada's proposal, I haven't read it, so I'll read it and think the deepest I can about it, and then feedback on you guys at the first opportunity I have. Second, I wanted to ask the developers here, Tadas and Vlad, if you guys have taken a look at what Dan has said are the improvements the Fractally blockchain will have over the EOS blockchain. He has mentioned something about reducing RAM and other very deep in blockchain intrinsic improvements. And for example, the namespaces, or, well, I'd like to know what is your opinion on those? I mean, the whole point of my question is, do you guys really think the Fractally blockchain is going to be much more powerful than what currently EOS is? That's one thing. And the other thing is, even if it's a more powerful blockchain, will that compensate for the fact that Dan is seriously thinking to develop that blockchain with only 6 block producers? And third point I wanted to make is, in order to avoid consuming time and resources from these meetings, what do you guys think about making one specific meeting just once to get rid of this either self-voting or not self-voting mechanism at some point during this week, so that all the people that is interested about it goes to that meeting and argues all they want, and we come to a conclusion, and whatever that conclusion is, the next meeting we just implement it and go for it. Thank you.
I haven't looked like deeply into the technical stuff of the Fractally blockchain, but as I understand, it will be faster. It will be cheaper to store information on it. And I think it's kind of app-specific blockchain. I'm not sure whether how good it will be for other applications, or initially they just plan to have Fractally and maybe keep it that way. That I don't know. Yeah.
Taras?
Yeah, so I read Dan's articles about, but I guess I think I didn't go too deeply in some of his ideas, especially regarding the new fee mechanism. And overall, maybe it's too early to evaluate it objectively, but I know Dan, like I have followed his projects, and I see how he upgraded, he improved his every earlier project by a lot. And like, one thing you can critique Dan, but as far as software engineering, I think he's like one of the best in blockchain space. So in my opinion, it's very likely that, most likely that it will be better in terms of performance than EOS, for example. And yeah, and I wanted to respond to Perry regarding the fact that token holders will be incentivized to vote in their self-interest. Well, see, what my mechanism would do, it would bring this power for EOS, bring more voting power to Fractal contributors. EOS token holders, they would just choose contributors which perform the best because that would pay them the most. But the real power would be in Fractal contributors, and you have this. That's where we use the advantage of Fractally process, because see, you have this group of people which is meeting publicly, and you have recordings which anyone can watch. So if anyone notices that something is wrong and something is dishonest in these meetings, people can call it out. And you also have incentive to watch these meetings in order to predict who will perform better. And the one final point is that I expect that if this system is implemented, that even Fractal contributors would have to, first of all, vote for BPs mindfully, and then even Fractal contributors should take into account take into account each other's votes. So basically, when ranking each other in Fractal meetings, they should take into account votes of each other. But I think that's a sensible thing to ask for, because voting in EOS governance is obviously a contribution in EOS governance. So that it's sensible that contributors rank each other based on how well they vote. Yeah, so that's my idea for ideas how to make this, I don't know, not ruled by self-interest, but by democratic process.
Done.
That's all.
Cool. Thanks for sharing your thoughts to Das and Perry and everybody. It's really great to hear from you all. Yeah, so I was going to mention a couple things. One, regarding your suggestion, Jorge, to have a separate meeting to discuss self-ranking. As I've been listening, I've also been kind of working on just putting together a bit of a blog post that collects some of your posts about this, and also Matt's post, and then James Martin, Dan Larimer, and maybe also at some point it'd be cool if we can get like some timestamps from this video and from past videos about the discussion, and we'll just see what we can do. And I'll share that soon, so that people can see all, or at least a decent amount of discussion about it in one spot. I do think that we're best off using the Fractally interim consensus process, because I think there's a good chance that a lot of people wouldn't be able to make a separate meeting, and then like the Fractally interim consensus process for Eden Fractal can enable the group to express opinions as a whole, or like in a more like legitimate and decentralizing community way where everybody's at the event. So we could potentially have a discussion about it, but I think that we should probably use the process at the meeting to actually decide about it, whereby, you know, people who are ranked 4, 5, or 6 in that week can pass proposals, and people can pose proposals on consortium. And then I'll also be sharing that blog post soon to try to just help the community have a lot of information to read and form their opinions in the meantime before we do that. And I think maybe next week or maybe 2 weeks from now, to give people more time, would probably be a good time to do that. And another thing I propose too that I think might be a good option is giving communities the option to, or giving each room the option to choose if they want to self-vote, but just keep it super short, like just a simple yes or no, like no advocating either way, just yes or no. I think that that would be a pretty good outcome, or at least a pretty good way to proceed in short term. Perhaps we could try that next week, maybe at the beginning of the meeting, everybody just says like, do we want to have self-voting, and then it's just a simple yes or no, so that way we don't waste time about it. So I'd be interested to hear about your thoughts about basically all of that, or anybody's thoughts about that.
Well, yes. Those were a lot of ideas.
Sorry if I overloaded. Feel free if you need me to repeat anything or anything like that. And we can also figure it out offline too.
A short comment. I think Dan's just add on while you ponder on your thoughts and how to respond or comment. Yeah, Dan, what you mentioned there is a good idea, actually. Like you said, next time, breakout rooms, first decide what you want to do. And then afterwards, when we gather, okay, give information, which room choose what. And there we have a beginning point for a further discussion right away. And similarly, what did the majority of rooms decide and similar? It's just an idea. Now we'll be quiet.
Or we could do a fractal style consensus regarding this specific subject, so that each person within each room comes with an argument, and the arguments are ranked, and so that the whole team agrees on what's the most powerful argument, and according to that, we take a decision. How about that?
I think that's perfect. That's exactly why we're here.
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts about that too. So for one thing, I've been working on a project that aims to do this for any kind of decision. So I'll just post a link to it. It's called Fractal Forums, which is basically the idea of using the Fractally process. But beforehand, like I think this could be a potentially a new fractal, or it could be something that just the Eden fractal does. But basically the idea is that we use the Fractally process, and then before each week's meeting, we use the consortium app to vote on discussion topics. So for example, one of the topics in a week could be about the self-ranking discussion. And then after we decide that, then the next week, or if we do it monthly, next month, whatever it is, then people have the week or month to vote on the best topic to discuss. And then we use the practical process to come to consensus about the best ways to lead the community or best ways to make decisions and so forth. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about that. It's essentially what you're saying, Jorge, but I think also that idea that you're proposing can also work for many other ideas in addition. It's just a matter of time. Like if people have time, like it's already kind of difficult to get enough people to join. I mean, fortunately, the Eden Fractal has had average of like 15 to 20 participants consistently. So I really appreciate everybody joining. But if we were to try to do another event, then people might not be able to make it. So like, I think that I've kind of been holding off the Fractal Forums until the community is larger. But I'm very interested to hear people's thoughts about this. I think it'd be cool to try it sometime.
Okay, that sounds like a plan then. We do it within this meeting and we apply the Fractally process to each important decision. Those could be really, really short meetings. Let's say 10 minutes to get consensus on what's the strongest argument, or even 15 minutes, aside from the regular meetings of ranking contributors.
When do you think that we should do that?
Right after the breakout rooms, or even within the breakout rooms. Maybe we can enlarge the breakout room time from 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And within the room, let's make clear that the first 40 minutes are to rank people, and the rest of the time is to achieve consensus on that specific subject we are arguing during the week.
God,
so
that's going to be difficult time-wise, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear everybody's thoughts about this. My opinion right now is that I think that this is a very interesting idea to explore in the future, but right now trying to coordinate it, I think I just don't know if it's like very feasible with everybody's time schedules. And I'm not super interested in debating this topic, as I explained last week, and I was a bit too I think I was speaking about it a bit too much, but like really, I just kind of want to move on from the topic. And so I think that the best way to do this, like I totally agree that it's a good thing to do at some point, but I think the best thing to do now is just use the interim consensus process, whereby we all vote on it and then just come to consensus there. And in the meantime, perhaps we could do that system where we just quickly vote at the beginning of each meeting. And we just try to do it as efficiently as possible. But also, I very much appreciate this discussion. And I think that this is also a much more interesting discussion that's more helpful in the long run, perhaps, about how we come to consensus about things like these, because there'll also be many other things that we need to come to consensus about as a group too. I see Tadas has his hands up too, but also Jorge, if you want to say something first, I don't know.
No, what I'm trying to do is to pack both things within the same breakout rooms, both the ranking of the contributors and the ranking of the arguments, not only about this specific subject, but about every possible decision we have to make. Because currently decisions are being made by the highest contributors, which according to my argument from the time I showed the graph, maybe not the optimal way. The optimal way is to make all the community to make the decision, and that could be done through the fractal process.
I think that currently we're just not really making decisions because we don't have a formal governance process. I mean, everybody's making their own independent decisions, and we sometimes vote on that. But I don't think we're really making many decisions as a group, like formally.
Yeah, I'm talking in the long term.
Okay, yeah, and also I want to respect Tadas's having his hands up too, but also like I'm apprehensive about adding more responsibility and more things to do during the breakout rooms, because already we only have 40 minutes as opposed to 45 minutes. And like today in our meeting, we like kind of just barely did it too. And like, I also want to respect the original intention of the _fractal white paper as much as possible to like rank contributions. And I think it makes it more complex for new people to join if we're like, well, we're ranking contributions and we're also ranking people's opinions about the subject and so forth. So I'm apprehensive about making it more complex during that time. And I lean towards keeping it as simple as possible.
Yes. Yeah, you got a point. I'm just thinking loud, sorry.
Okay, no worries at all. It's much appreciated hearing your thoughts. I'll pass on to Tadas now.
Yes, basically we have a problem of how to reach consensus on how to on the governance. Yeah, I think that what we need to do is choose the most simple or already available process for reaching decisions, and then iterate on it, like use that decision-making process to improve that that process, that decision-making process itself. Yeah, so I think that maybe the best approach would be to, as Dan suggested, to use the interim consensus process, because it's already defined in text, so it will be easier for everyone to understand. So, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep.
Did we put Chris to sleep?
I was just going to say that. Well, first of all, I'll say to Das, I totally agree. And I think that that's the best way to proceed. Keep it simple. Interim consensus process is set up. I'll aim to finish that post that I had shared above. And, you know, everybody else you're welcome to as well. But I feel like we could get that set up and then make decisions like that. And then, Chris, I hope that you were enjoying your dreams if you were sleeping. And maybe that's also a sign that we should start to wrap it up soon. I'm enjoying the discussions. I think these are really helpful, but we have been going on for almost 3 hours now. Yes. So what does everybody think? Should we start to wrap it up, or should we keep going? Does anybody have any other thoughts you want to share, or questions or ideas?
Well, I would like to know what are we going to do about the decision process of this self-ranking thing? We are going to just do what you just proposed of at the beginning of the meeting, say yes or no, or are we going to at some point elaborate on this and go to the best possible solution?
If I could just point out that the way Fractally does it, the way Dan and Fractally does it, is after the meeting, they make their decisions. And I think it was just a raise of hands or a kind of a verbal vote. I think that was the last time. That's the way they amended their process a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but that's with after the level 6 has been decided. This is a topic for the whole Fractally community. So it needs to be introduced, needs to be posted, as Lenny said, 2 weeks. So the announcement must be made and all that, because this is a big deal. This removes your power to directly impact the blockchain.
So you're saying there's a process of we make the proposal of the change, and then we vote on it that same day, and then 2 weeks later it's enacted.
There's a process of electing people empowered to both propose it and to vote on it. So we need to elect people, or not elect, but people have to rise to the highest level ranks, propose it, and then the following week do the same thing, except those people now are voting on it. That's how they've been doing it.
Sounds reasonable to me. Yeah, that would. I'm generally in favor of following along with what they're doing, right or wrong, just learning with them, and I like that at the moment. I like it. I don't, of course, if we see something that we don't like, but so far I'm seeing, I like everything I see that's going on over there.
So. Same here, Perry. I very much agree. Joran, you had your hands up a moment before me, but I would just like to just respond first to what Jorge and Perry were saying. If that's cool with you. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. So my proposal, Jorge, is that next week, all groups just do it in the very beginning of the meeting, that we say, will we allow self-voting in this meeting? And then we just make it so people say yes or no, and whatever the majority agrees for next meeting, that's what each group decides. And then I also propose that over this week, everybody reviews this document that I put together, the interim consensus process. Welcome back, Felix. Thanks that you could join again. And so I encourage and I propose that everybody checks out this document, which explains what Marco was saying and what Perry was exploring. It's got a link to the Genesis Fractal interim group consensus process. I wrote out a proposal that modifies a little bit, whereby not just people who are ranked 6, but people who are ranked 4, 5, or 6 can approve proposals, and a proposal must be proposed on Consortium, the voting app, with a simple yes or no poll beforehand. So I propose that we just use a very simple way where each room votes next week very quickly without advocating whether we allow self-voting, and then during next week we can ratify the Eden Fractal consensus process if everybody's in agreement with that, and we can use the Eden Fractal consensus process whereby people who are ranked 4, 5, or 6 that week, 2/3 vote can ratify any, I suppose, rules or group decisions going forward. And of course, those can be changed, and they're somewhat limited in their power because we can't enforce everything. I don't know if enforce is the right word, but I think that will be a good step to keep it simple, as Siddhas was saying. And as Perry was saying, use what's already worked in the Genesis Fractal. And I think that will resolve here. So I'd be curious to hear what everybody thinks about that. Also, I know Joran has his hands up. Felix did too, but let's go to Joran first because he has his hands up first.
I'm just trying to understand what not voting for myself means. Does it mean I have to vote for someone else, or that I don't type in my name? Which one is it? Because if it means I don't type in my name, then the thing like a scenario where there's 4 people and 4 people voted for someone and I didn't type in my name, and then they ask, why didn't you type in your name? And I say, no, or why didn't you type something? And I say, I want to advocate for myself. So it's basically the same thing. So either you type in your name or you abstain, it's the same thing. So you have to vote for someone else. You're forced to vote for someone else.
The way I always advocated is you can advocate for yourself all you want. You can do, for example, as Dan does, bring a presentation with all his contributions and do your best to show the people how valuable your work is. And that's perfect. That's self-advocating at the highest level. That's good. But at the moment of doing the voting, of writing who is going to be who at each level, you don't include yourself, because it's a total contradiction to have a measurement device which is both the measurement instrument and the measurement target. That's been my point.
So it means you have to vote for someone else
at every stage. Yes.
When you're voting in the Zoom chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can still advocate and speak, but just in the Zoom chat is what it's talking about. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And at any moment, if you don't feel the results are being fair, you can speak and say, hey guys, I think you are not valuing my work, or maybe I didn't explain my contribution really clear. I think I deserve a higher ranking, but you have to respect the opinion of the others, and you have to abstain yourself from that opinion. That's been my my proposal all the time.
Yeah. So I was getting the feeling that if you think you should be ranked higher, you shouldn't vote, or you should wait, because that doesn't work, because it's 3, 2, 1 and go. So then I can vote for someone else or not vote. Those were the options. You're saying I should vote for someone else. So then I would be, if I think I should be ranked 6, then I would be effectively voting for someone I think should be at rank 5 and for the rank 6 position.
Well,
right?
you can look at it as the sample you're taking doesn't include yourself. So you're ranking the other 5 people. It's not about who's going to be level 6. It's about, from the other 5 people in your room, who did the highest contribution. And the average of those 5 people rankings is going to end up with one of them being level 6.
Yeah, it's then basically out of 5 people, 4 people are voting. Only 4 people are voting. It's like that. It changes the maths.
Yeah, it does sometimes make it more difficult to reach consensus, or I think it always makes it more difficult to reach consensus, because, like, say in a group when you have 6 people, then rather than needing 4 people to vote for you, then you would need 5 people. So that's one of the reasons why I prefer to just enable self-voting. I don't think it's a really big deal either way. Like, I think it's just voting in the chat. What really matters is that you have the ability to speak about it. So, and then oftentimes, like, I think the community just always figures it out via chatting, because even if you have it where 4 to 5 people are voting for somebody, but you can't reach consensus because somebody can't vote for themselves, or rather 3 to 5 people are voting for the people. I don't know if I'm explaining the math right, but like the group always figures it out. The group always reaches a consensus. I've never been in a meeting where people haven't reached consensus. So I think it's simpler and easier just to let people vote for themselves, more expressive. But I think that it's an opportunity for us to like grow together as a group and try out decentralized consensus processes. And then also we can always change it too. So I'd be curious to hear if people have opinions about this interim consensus process we've spoken about. The link is above in the chat. And then if we decide one thing one week, then we can always make another proposal in the next week. And then with this process, we can do it quickly. We can do it where we just vote quickly and then we don't have to talk about it. So it allows us to be flexible. But I see Felix's hands up. I don't know if you want to say anything more, Jorn, too. Also, Jorge said something too.
One more thing. Yeah, it's like today, we reached consensus today, but I don't think it's true in a sense, because there was a tie and there was, no one was willing to change the vote. And then Lenny spoke up. He's old and wise. He spoke up. He, sort of made the agreement, I think. And I think, maybe he made that call because, he himself let himself go to a lower rank. But I think he deserved a better rank. And I was not willing to change that. But then he did. He himself changed that rank. I felt like that. So there is some, I'm not sure about that. Maybe I felt like that because he's giving that up.
So your point is that you're not sure, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, so please think deep about this. When you are sure, raise your hand and make a point.
No, I was asking about. I was asking actually about, when we say you shouldn't vote for yourself, you're saying to not vote or vote for someone else. That was my query. Actually.
Yeah, just to be specific, sorry, Felix, just to be specific, the question at hand is whether people can type their name into the Zoom chat when the votes are being submitted. And then another thing just that's helpful to keep in mind, Jorn, too, I think you probably heard it, is that it's always bound to be unfair every week. Like, we can only do our best to help rank and contributions during the time we have, but this is a long-term process. So being that Lenny was very graceful and gracious to kind of say that he preferred to rank Jorge above instead, that's something that also we can keep in mind for next week and future weeks, that Lenny's both very graceful to work with, and also he didn't receive maybe as much respect as some people thought that he should have in past weeks. So it can balance that over time. It's not a perfect system, but we're doing our best. So I hope that makes sense. Also, Felix has had his hands up for a while.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess first to hop on this topic again, I don't know if this is the right way to phrase it, but I think in terms of thinking of it, like, I don't know if logically is the correct way, or if you want to say like very objectively, like when you cast a vote for yourself, I see the argument that you're not adding any value at all, right? We provide value by reaching consensus by casting our votes on the ranks. So I do. So one, with like your example, Gian, if you wanted to be 6, but you first remove yourself and you vote for who would you vote for with yourself removed? If you still wanted to be 6, after that vote is casted, then you can say, hey, I still feel like I wanted to be 6, though I casted my vote, because I'm removing myself first, so that there's no noise, like, because you are adding noise by just saying, hey, I'm voting for myself. That's not adding any value though, technically, right? Because if everyone voted for themselves, then we would be at a deadlock, and you're not providing any value outside of voting for yourself. Like you're first caring about voting for yourself rather than like who else are you, like, do you respect their contribution? So that's where I see something there. The only thing now that I've like started to struggle with is like, okay, if we do implement the UI, which is nice and it can help, now technically now we're not really casting votes, right? Because you're dragging up and down where you believe you belong. So that's kind of like, now I'm just like, I'm unsure like how that's going to play. But I part of me thinks that maybe it would be interesting to see, like, what if a system it requires first other votes have to be casted towards yourself. Your vote to yourself will not count as a vote. But then how does that affect the math as far as like, the 2/3 plus 1, or the 66%? And I think probably before I go into any other topics, I'll probably leave that there for anyone that has any comments or response to that.
Thanks, Felix. I have some comments that are related to that, but if Jorge has a more direct comment, then you can feel free to go first.
Yeah, one thing you have to consider, guys, is that this is not a process that is free from incentives. Today, current price is, let's say, 14 EOS for the first for the top contributor. But let's suppose that the price were 100 EOS or 1,000 EOS, and everybody was allowed to vote for himself. Then I can assure you that in a group of 6 people, 5 of them will vote for themselves, because there is 1,000 EOS on the line. So you guys need to think this as something that is built for the long term, something upon which we can build more. So regarding Felix's questions, if I were to implement the UI, these drag and drop images at any person's interface, I wouldn't include himself as an option. He will have to just drag and drop the other people. And the average of those ranking each member, the other 5 members, will determine who is 6, who is 5, who is 4, and so on. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So we have Felix and Lenny with their hands up. I'll be relatively brief. So Jorge, I don't agree that we have to design it for the long term right now, because one of the things that this fractal process allows and the interim consensus process allows is to change as we go. So the argument or the reasoning that like there's incentives where there's hundreds of EOS or thousands of EOS on the line, it's not real right now. I mean, it could be in the future, and I mean, I hope it will be in the future, and we're all working towards that. I believe it will be, but we have a governance process so we can change in the future. I mean, if say 6 months from now that's a reality, then we can change the rules at then. I don't think that we need to change the rules in advance of that, because that's not currently what it is. There's incentive, but it's rather low. And in all the rooms I've been in, people have been like kind and graceful. There's been a couple of disagreements here and there. That's part of the process, but like people cooperate like quite well and haven't been adamant about being rated number 6 or anything like that. I also do think that a lot of this discussion will be resolved with the UI, because really the ƒractal team is building UI. I don't think that any of us are going to build UI. Maybe Vlad's built a great UI already, but also the ƒractal team has an amazing team who's building this. And I think that probably our best solution is going to be to do what the ƒractal team has built, and use that, potentially modify it or customize in the future. And maybe these discussions can be helpful for future, maybe as you were saying, doing it in a different way. But for the immediate or for the shorter term future, I think that using the UI, however they do it, is probably best. And then I think that that kind of resolves a lot of the issues here, because you're not doing self-voting. And then lastly, well, 2 things. One, I'd like to say, I do think that we should probably wrap it up soon, or if you guys want to keep going, then I'll probably just listen rather than being on video, and I'll go outside and get some exercises at the same time. And I've enjoyed this conversation, so thank you very much. And then I'd also like to refocus too, back to the interim consensus process, because I think that that's a potential solution for this. So I'd be interested to hear if anybody has any perspectives about implementing that, perhaps next week or in 2 weeks or something like that. If anybody has any ideas about that, or if you need more time to think about it, that's cool too. But Lenny had his hands up raised next, I believe.
All right, yeah. Sorry, I was supposed to be quiet so we don't have to prolong it, but just a few comments. Since my name was mentioned.
Thanks, Lenny.
Yeah, first of all, no, we need to resolve this. I mean, we spent 1 hour almost talking about it. So we got to have a decision one way or the other. So definitely I'm for whichever way is best going forward next week or 2 to have it settled. Now, when it comes to one of the things, and Jeon is quite right, I kind of backed out, but why did I do it? Remember, I do the recaps. I read most things. So therefore, and also I attend every single meeting except when I'm dead sick or whatever, and similar. So I have a very good grasp of how deep different people dwell into various things compared to me. And that's where sometimes I speak for someone else. I don't change my own vote because I already have lined it up. So it's kind of based on being aware of so much. And similarly, and then I judge myself there when we're sitting in a group, who do you happen to sit with? So that is it's not that I'm humble and being nice or anything. If I'm better, I'll say so. Don't worry about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lenny. Much appreciated. I think Felix is next.
Yeah. Did you have comments though, as far as like, I guess I don't know, when I'm thinking about like when it comes to, well, okay, so comments real quick on like what you said about like, okay, the what ƒractal is going to be releasing. I'm not sure. Obviously, we'd have to see how the code is, and we'd have to get feedback from our developers like Vlad, who would be the ones that would be implementing that for us to use. But to change, it seems the self-voting doesn't seem like that could be something that would be too complex as far as like being able to slide yourself. Maybe it is though. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think, yeah, this is something that I think this may take more time to resolve as far as which way we're going to go with it. That's why I just think that probably the simplest way is to like, we don't have to enforce anything, but we can basically kind of come to a conclusion that, hey, remove yourself from the vote, then vote for you, then advocate for yourself. Like, but the key is we have to distinguish that these are 2 separate things: voting and advocating for yourself. Voting meaning like you have no power in the consensus. Like basically your vote toward yourself would not count in the 66% a threshold that needs to be reached in order to lock somebody into a position. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like, for me, it's like, yeah, I definitely see that there. Right. It makes sense. Like, I don't think, yeah, now the more that we talk about, I just don't think that like voting for yourself probably is like being able to, like I said, have an impact on the threshold. Now, like I said, I don't know how that affects the mathematics and like the ability to reach consensus. But I don't know if that makes sense. But I think, yeah, I don't really see like how you're adding value to reaching consensus by casting your vote for yourself. And I think by removing yourself, that helps get a clearer picture of like your contribution of like, okay, now you're taking time before caring about where you want to put yourself, like where do you rank others' contributions? And then this is a collective amount of data that the group can reach and look at of like, okay, well, this is the votes of like how everyone would vote removing themselves. This is where everyone sees their contributions removing themselves. So it's like from a bystander, like saying that if you're going to vote, but you're not in the election itself, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just kind of how just some thoughts that are running through.
I guess it's my turn.
And then as far as like, I guess the interim process, I do think that would it would be beneficial to have something. The only thing I'm worried about is like locking. I mean, I guess there's the flexibility, but then I think we need to really start to organize these meetings, the post meeting, into breakout parts where it's like this amount of time is for it. Because if we have an interim process, then we have to set some time and a dead time of like we're voting, so that like we're respecting everyone can lock in times to commit to that process part. And the only thing is that like if we're having this proposal and then every week, like I don't know, I guess we need to think about it of like it. I guess it wouldn't hurt to implement it, but also with being very cautious of really like locking us into something concrete, even though I know things can change week to week. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
But I think that is next steps though. Is like I think probably first next steps is probably let's take this hour at the hour post meeting and let's start to break this up into like sections of like, okay, we cover topics, and then maybe you have a section where it's like, okay, more all free for all. Maybe that leads towards the end. So then if anyone who wants to stick around can stick around and talk about those topics, but then it's not bound to like objectives of like the basically agreed upon topics that us as a community like need to talk about on a weekly basis. That would probably be the most beneficial thing for for us right now of where to go, my opinion.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly here too, like I think that the interim consensus process gives us power to do that, and the ability to do that better, because right now it's like, one of us could say, let's do it this way and let's have it all time allocated, and we could agree there. And so we don't necessarily need the consensus process, but I think it just provides more flexibility for the group to decide as a whole, like, do we want to try doing it this week this way or whatever? I don't know. But anyway, Jorge, what's up?
Yeah, I want to say that I support implementing the interim consensus process proposed by Dan. The only thing I would like to change is instead of allowing the highest contributors from that last week to take the decision, taking the highest accumulated respect, the people who have the highest accumulated respect overall from all weeks to make the decision.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts, Jorge. I thought about this quite a lot, and I imagine that Dan and the faculty team have thought about it quite a lot too when they designed it. I'd be interested to hear people's perspectives about this. I think that that creates more risk for the community because it creates more risk of incumbency. Like, for example, I don't know, the people who are ranked in the top 10 right now in terms of having the most Eden respect, like that list is changing, but it's changing on a much slower scale and time scale than obviously who gets ranked 4, 5, or 6 each week. So if those top 10 people agree, or however many people it is, if it's the top 6 people or top 12 or whatever we agree, like it becomes difficult to change decisions that the people who have been there from the beginning don't agree with. And so I feel like I trust everybody here greatly, of course, and I'm interested in exploring this. But like, I feel like it makes us more flexible when people who are ranked highest that week have the opportunity to vote, and then we can get different opinions each week and different people to review it. I think that people who are ranked 4, 5, or 6 are probably doing good work for the community. We could potentially also do just 5 or 6, but I think 4, 5, or 6 works for our current group size. And I think it's also better for new people in the community, because if somebody comes to the community for the first time now, and there's people who already have hundreds and hundreds of Eden respect, but they're a great contributor, they have great ideas or something like that, then they don't really have an opportunity to play a role in the governance until they join maybe 10 meetings more or 15 meetings more, which can be a barrier, especially because Eden and EOS are communities like, say, like Aaron Cox or Eve LaRose came to a meeting. Like, obviously they don't have as much respect just because they haven't been here, but the community greatly respects them. And so I think that it's fitting that they would have a vote on things if they are ranked 4, 5, or 6. So there's a lot of thoughts there, and perhaps can be a bigger discussion. I'd be interested to hear what you think. But that's kind of some of the reason why I think having where people vote based upon their weekly rankings best, in addition to what Perry was saying, and just doing what has worked for the Genesis Fractal, because I think that in general, they've thought about these things quite a bit, and we can take an easier route by doing what they're doing as well.
Well, thank you. I get your point. In that case, instead of taking the highest accumulated respect, we could bring in the people who has attended most meetings. The thing is that what you say, even though it looks really convincing and a strong argument, and the same as Dan's and James Mark, there are opinions. But the data that Matt Langston plotted says that the most trustworthy opinions come from the people who have attended the most. And we have to be data-driven instead of opinion-driven. So I will suggest, if we're going to do this interim decision process, to make the decisions the people who have attended the most, who have been more consistent visiting these meetings. And I'll give, for example, Lenny. Lenny is a person who, as he just said, has a deep comprehension of everyone's contributions and knows deeply the system because of the work he's doing, but he rarely ranks 6 or 5. So that's the kind of person I think should take the decisions. And this is, aside from being my opinion, is consistent with the data. And that's my whole point. We need to be data-driven.
Perry, you're muted.
Perry.
Well, I guess you were talking first. I'll let you go.
Just really quickly, I'm curious to know how Matt came to how does he actually quantify who is the trusted person? That when I was looking at that chart, that's the part I didn't quite understand. It was very interesting, but I didn't get that part.
Well, the chart in the vertical axis has the standard deviation of the measurement each person's did. So the standard deviation is a measure of how variable compared to the actual consensus is the opinion of that person. So the less variable that opinion is, the most accurate that person is, the most trustworthy that person is as a measurement device compared to what the consensus of the whole group is going to be.
Their vote versus everybody else's vote within that group.
Their vote compared to what the consensus of the whole group ended to be.
Interesting. Okay.
Very short input in short words. So if you got an outflyer, someone ended up 6, everyone voted, and you go one who gave him now level 1, that's an outflyer. That makes a heck of a lot of noise. But the more you know, the more balanced you become with others who've been there long term.
Okay.
But Jorge, this data though is driven right by every week's, because we're not capturing the submitted vote during the meeting, right? It's what he's capturing is what the votes were throughout the time, throughout all the meetings. So for example, let's say I ranked I don't know, Lenny, for example, let's say he was in my room 1 week where I ranked him 6, and that was a consensus. So then that's posting that that's what my vote was. And then another week though, let's say the consensus was for Lenny 3. They're taking those points and tying that to my vote, right? But that's not really my vote. That was the consensus of the group's vote. Am I understanding that right? Like, because
Yes.
that's how I.
Yes,
Okay.
because there is no data about who you voted for. But on average, you can take the average of all the groups you have been at. For example, in those groups, Lenny on average was certain rank. So because that average is taken from only the groups you were at with Lenny, that's a good approximation of what's your vote for Lenny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is a powerful way of quantifying it, but there are, I think, a couple problems there too, because things are changing on a week-to-week basis. But I mean, overall, I think that that's better than having no data on that. But I do, obviously, it's not a perfect tool yet. But
yeah, but it's going to improve as more meetings are added to the data.
You guys, Chris is falling asleep again, and we're going on the 4th hour.
Yeah, let's go. So next week we implement this interim process.
Just resting my eyes.
Okay, cool.
And
I'm running out of gas myself, so I'm gonna wrap it up myself, gentlemen, and I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, goodbye, guys. I'm tired too.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I think we've gotten some good things as far as for next week to think about. But yeah, let's continue these we can make the Eden and the Discord chat more lively too, right? And have those conversations throughout the week in the Discord chat as well. And then maybe we could do some free fly where maybe 2 of us, we hop in the town hall is a voice chat room, right? So anytime anyone has some free time and wants to maybe discuss these ideas, I really recommend, that's how I see the Discord, why that's a valuable community tool, because I use something very similar. It's like Slack and this one thing called Geneva, but when I was in this Creator Now program, it was to incentivize other creators to work together. And so one of the things they did awesome over there was kids would just hop in this group chat, the voice room, and then they would just hang out there. And so then that spurts a lot of other conversations. So if we foster more of a community engagement, but obviously that's also more related to Eden. But I think it could be beneficial to continue our conversations there as well. But I have some ideas in mind for next week's meeting.
Yes, I totally agree, because I've been holding back my main concern right now with Genesis Fractal, because I knew it was going to drag on another half hour, an hour. Town hall, see you there.
All right. See you guys.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
See you guys.
Appreciate
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.